Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. There's some people first waking up right now, I get the feeling. This is the luxury of studying at home, right? I mean, there's no like, oh, I gotta get ready to get on the train
I've
routine.
been up since 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh no, I could kind of imagine what goes with that. I don't have to guess too much about that. Listen, Clarissa, they do grow up. I just want.
When? I need it now. Now. I need daycare open. I need it now.
Listen, I don't want to scare you, and I don't want to offend anyone who's amongst the youngest ones in the classroom, but you're going to have to survive teenage at some point. So
No, I have a plan. Once you hit like 13, I'm kicking you out. You can go to your grandmother. I'm done.
Of course, there's that.
After that, I'm done. Done.
My daughter has passed through teens. You know, she's like in her early 20s now, so she could even talk about how scary the teens are.
I'm
I'm
32,
like, yeah,
and I was a horrible child. So,
yes.
I
So listen, here it is. It's amazing where the magic energy comes from when you need it. And I got to say, creative stuff is always a savior, regardless of what your own stressors are. As individuals. This multimedia class is really a lot of fun for me to teach and to share with you, particularly because it is so panoramic, really. And I get to make a larger point that I've always stood by. I'm definitely like, a champion of creativity as a borderline religious pursuit. Not even borderline, but one of the reasons is it just channels something about you that is what's most human about you. And like whenever you look at ourselves and other creatures, people love to say, oh, we think so much of ourselves, humanity, like in our holy books, we say, oh, we're modeled after the divine being. And, we were told to tame nature and all this stuff. You get a huge ego. And then you ask people, well, how are we different than other mammals, for example? And you always hear the same kind of routines, and I have arguments with all of them. One of them is we have humor. You ever watch a bunch of chimpanzees? They think life is a riot, and they'll do things to each other out of a sense of humor, Then they'll say, well, we have music. I know several species that make music. Never mind like birds and all, which we'd have to argue about. But there's recognizable music. Again, a kind of primate that I know of that actually beats on these local trees. And even as a human, you know what they're doing. You can hear it. So, we can keep going through that list of things that, we make art. Man, don't do this now because it's incredibly distracting. But if you ever want to watch some truly entertaining nature video, it's funny enough to be on YouTube, even though it sounds smart. The bird of paradise, it's a large species with many kinds of subspecies, but they're incredibly, they're artists. The boy bird wants to attract the girl bird, and it makes the coolest little art apartment for itself. And it goes and it steals shiny things from humans and finds different colors around, flies around, brings the stuff back and builds this kind of circular bachelor pad, and shows it off. Also, he's got a crazy dance, and they all have slightly different dances. There's no evolutionary purpose in this dance. They just like to dance, and they're impressed by the bird who dances best. So, all right, that's another one off the list. So I don't know. I think, frankly, and I'm going to get to our subject. Since I got started, I have to finish what I'm saying. We are self-reflective. And I don't know how much evidence there is of other animals being that way. Even the ones that recognize themselves in a mirror, like the dolphin does. I don't think my cat recognizes herself in a mirror, though she does recognize birds on TV. So she could recognize 2D images, right? But she just doesn't have that kind of self-awareness. So some animals have self-awareness. The thing about humanity is we've made full-time careers out of self-awareness or attempting self-awareness. And one of the ways we love to do it most is art. So like our ability to create things that are not specifically what's been created before goes beyond just making a nest to attract each other. It's this constant self-awareness process we go through as we try to help each other be more self-aware and find some fulfillment in what may be the essence of being human. So I have to say, web design's a lot of fun. One could just see it as fun. Another person could just see it as a way to make money. Hopefully a lot of people see it as both. But the bottom line is, like, why does all this work anyway? And why does it matter to each other? You know, what strings are we playing that make someone stop and read these weird little symbols, sound out words, and then say, oh, I like your symbols and the way you laid them out and how you did it with pictures. And, you know, it's this weird shared act of faith as we communicate through visuals and as we create to discover who we are and to have fun. So I want to jump to having fun. I have a lot to say philosophically, I have to say. In a different kind of class, it's half of that. This I just want to share with you now and then because I believe in what you're doing. Folks, before we jump in, I just want to add, so this class juggles two or 3 points of view. You got a taste of it already, and we're going to go deeper with it. One point of view is people who are going into commercial arts should get a head start on their art form and know the ones that relate to it, you know. So, you know, you're a video person these days. It's not a bad idea to know something about the web or about animation, for example. Let's say you're a graphic designer. You know, in the recent past, that just meant that you didn't do movement and you weren't focused on screens, right? Graphic designer meant you were a designer, but it was probably going to be printed in ink, almost surely, you know, or it could be 3D design, you know, clothing, objects. But it wasn't the web and it wasn't movies and it wasn't anything that moved. But let's say nowadays, if you're going in that direction, and I bet some of you are, graphic design, you know, you have to be kind of aware of this multimedia side of the fence. You know, if someone's going to say, oh, I read this magazine the other day, you don't even know anymore if they meant they picked up a magazine, you know, or they went to an online magazine. You know, you don't even know anymore. So the commercial fields, I'm going commercial for a minute here, that old division of I'm a screen-based designer and I'm not, you know, I'm a print-based designer, is fading out anyway. So that basically means in terms of the commercial, or let me put it a different way, a concrete way of seeing, you know, here I am in school, what am I here for? I'm here for a career, that point of view. Yes, this class is about that, but in a panoramic way. So I'm not telling video students you should only learn video. You have to be digitally literate, right? You know, in the modern day. And artists always had to be that way, people in creative fields. I want to say something to the other thing. I said there's 3 different strands of this class. So that was people going to commercial arts. The other one is just general digital literacy. You know, I mean, frankly, you know, my family used to boycott television for a bunch of years. My kid reached a certain age and she was damn smart because we boycotted television. So there was lots of reading and there was lots of other kind of stuff instead of the brain mush of TV. But at a given age, she was saying, like, I can't really talk to people. You know, they're all watching this show and that show, and I'm not literate in terms of what the culture is interested in, you know. So digital literacy goes deep, and I think it goes deepest when you get a chance to try making stuff yourself. So that's another part of this class. Anyway, so basically I started saying, I do believe that there's sole value in taking creative classes. That was my first argument. My second argument was commercial. How do careers work? How specific do you want to be? You know, do you really want to go to a foot doctor who knows nothing about the leg? You know, he can't be good. Can't be good at it. So we really need this kind of, what I keep saying, panoramic. I mean, 360, this all around view with your thing you like best in the middle, but you need a very large view around it. And lastly, just digital literacy. You know, guys, I just want to make one small comment about that, especially if I have some liberal arts majors in the classroom. I'll bet you that even people who graduate with a liberal arts degree wind up making more money. I'll bet you if we looked at statistics, it's not just the fact that you went to school, learned a career that made you more money. It's just something about, well, for one, you do have the paper, right, that proves you were disciplined enough. People need discipline if they're going to hire you. It doesn't matter what the field is, right? So there's that. But also on top of that, just what you're made of. There's that thing of what you're made of. But lastly, it makes you smarter. I hate to say it, it just does. If a person really doesn't get exposed in this way, you only know what your little village has to say, or your family, or your backyard. So this is what I'm exposed to. You know, the whole idea with generations is you expand out of what the family gave you, right? And then you add to it. If you have kids or whatever, you get back to the culture or whatever, it expands from there. So we keep expanding. All right. Anyway, let's dive in. We have a lot to do today. The best thing about this, all these arguments I tend to make about digital literacy, artisticness, paying bills, for me, it's all tied up. So I'm going to say one last comment. Let's go make some web pages. You know that old argument that people say, don't mix business and pleasure? Have you ever heard that one?
Yeah.
That's so stupid, man. I can't even tell you, to be honest. Don't mix business and pleasure. That basically means you're going to give away 1/3 of your life with no pleasure. You know, if you work 8 hours a day, it's about 1/3 of your life, you know, nearly, right? With no pleasure. How stupid is that? Like, what if you got to live to 90? You just chuck 30 years out the window to pay for the other 60? You're going to sleep 30 of those years. So that it's just not a square deal. Please mix business and pleasure. Just do it smart. Mix the right pleasure with the right business. All right, let's see what we can do about that. I am going to screen share. One thing I meant to do, because we had some issues yesterday, but I didn't get to, is I just want to see if there's like the best little tutorial on how to get around Zoom, you know, particularly when you need to screen share. It is awkward. But like down the road, this is going to get harder. You're going to want to show me stuff more often. And we have to be able to get you screen sharing within like 2 minutes so that you could show me stuff without like fumbling. It's not your fault if you haven't done it before. So I got to find a way to make that easier. I can't show you how to screen share because I'd need to be screen sharing to do that. So I got to find a video. Anyway, right now, let's just move forward. I'm going to screen share right now. Guys, listen, we've been through a lot in 2 days, so it feels like we've been here longer than we've been in a weird way, right? And yet I do have to review one more time. Each time I'm going to do it shorter. Tomorrow I'm going to drop half the review stuff, only review the new material, you know, nothing prior to the newest material, right? But I do have to say a couple of things because even though it's the 3rd day, there may be people first arriving right now. I hate that. But you know, these are strange times, so we have to be flexible. All right, so let me just run through things kind of
You
quick.
mean Monday, right? Isn't tomorrow Friday?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, because I don't know
show
my
up
days of the week
tomorrow,
anymore.
anybody.
So I'm just keep
I hear you, yeah. No, you know, I tend to say, it's great that we're going to have these several days in a row because we're going to get real momentum that just never happens in school. It's like a whole 7 days and you're coming back, you're like half remembering, even if you did the homework and did it well. This is a totally different snowballing effect. But boy, am I glad that we have 3-day weekends. So yes. All right, let me screen share. So I am definitely going to choose the desktop. You can't see what I'm doing now, but it's giving me 5 choices and it's going to give you 5. I see the one that says desktop and I click share. All right, now you should be able to see my stuff. And I want to just, like I said, repeat a couple things. Those of you who are here today, or those of you who will be watching me later today, a bit of time travel on my part, right? I want to say to those people watching the video, don't neglect the website, right? You need this website. You're really not going to be able to pass my class without repeatedly visiting the website. That's what's going to map out everything and give you the links you need and the homework. So just real quickly, if anyone did miss class 1, you know, to be honest with you, I kind of feel like class 2, I did a very thorough review and the new material. So if anybody was really that late, I would suggest, you know what, just watch the class 2 video, you know. So you'd read this class 2 handout, you know, or open it somewhere, and then you'd also get the video out. Guys, I want to say one quick thing about the videos. I'm probably going to stop listing them that way because I'm not really giving you links to the individual movies. I'm just giving you links to this page so that you could find the one you want. You know, so depending on how you sort it in YouTube, I like date added, right? The newest one's going to be on the top. So if you ever, you know, thinking that way, they'll all be dated and give the number of the class, but this will help. These are old ones. I'm leaving them there because I'm not sure if we'll have use for them later. But these are us with the dates. All right, let me get out of here. So I'm just going to go right to today's handout, which is always the first thing, and I'm sure most of you already did that. I'm sure there's a temptation just to save the Zoom link and every day just click your own shortcut. That makes some kind of sense, except for I'd rather you not skip this stuff. So look, you could see here that the first, several items are all stuff we've covered. So I'm just going to say real quickly what I need to. If you still don't have a computer for this class, and I apologize that I've not yet heard back. I'm a little worried, by the way, because the person in charge of this is very responsible. So I really hope he's well. But I've not heard back from the people in charge of trying to get computers. So I know at least one of you needed a computer, told me yesterday he wanted to buy one. So I just want to say to you, the one or two of you who are considering buying computers because you see it as valuable beyond this class, well, that's a great idea. If you feel that way and you could afford it, just get it now, right away. If you're going to buy it, you're going to put in that money, then just buy it now. I mean, right after class, read a couple reviews, check out some prices on Amazon or whatever and buy it and check the shipping date. See if you could rush it. If you're going to invest and it's an extra $25, it's a lot of money. I know that. But you're already investing in taking a whole class. So if you're going to buy a computer, get it right away.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Mike.
Good morning,
Actually, I was looking yesterday for Best Buy. Now I think they have opened it. They have opened their stores. So I think
we go in and get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can just go there and can look it up. But
wear your mask and keep away from everybody, please.
Yeah, sure, of course.
I got to say, I live in a neighborhood where everybody disagrees on how to handle this. We're the most mixed neighborhood around.
Yeah, but the thing
I'm very proud of that. It's the most colorful place. I live south of Prospect Park in Brooklyn. But a lot of people are not wearing masks, and I'm really afraid because in a month or two, they're going to start getting sick if they're not already. And the populations I really care about, my neighbors, but they don't want to listen. But in any case, so it goes.
But we have they didn't open all the Best Buys, just only a few of them.
So listen, let me move forward though, because everybody wants to learn. I'm pleased that you're getting a computer. You're a mature guy, so I'm sure you'll figure out how to do it. So I'm just going to jump forward right now. So guys, I just want to mention again, that means yesterday I got the feeling that almost everybody was already equipped, which was great. So this is the shape of the future in any digital class. So it's good to know that you're ready for anything like that. But I just want to point about the software, right? I will give you a heads up a day or 2 days early, whenever possible, to let you know you got to get ready with some new tool, right? As I told you, I'm aiming in everything that's free, once you set up with the right computer. So I don't have the date for you right now, but sometime next week, we're going to be moving into Photoshop. And what you have, all these programs we're going to be using, these next 3, sort of come together. First, you get this thing called Creative Cloud. So if you want to do it early, some of you may have done it already. Just, it's on you. Check this link out. This is from our school that tells you how to go about getting the free Creative Cloud account. Some of you have it. It's probably just running on its own until July. So anyway, you might want to check this out early. Just last word, because I'm probably not going to repeat this tomorrow. Monday. I'll wait till we get really close to needing this stuff, so we're not wasting time. Audacity's not for a while. It's free. It'll all take us a very short time to get it. I just want to mention that's the full set anyway. That's everything we need. One other subject all takes place online, so I'm not even putting it on the list. And it uses Sublime, which you already have. So really, yesterday, most of you had Sublime and you had Chrome out, or at least another browser, even though I prefer Chrome, and we were good to go. So I just want to jump right into web design now. Most of my classes are not going to have a lot of lecture at the beginning. It's going to be like 5 minutes, 10 tops, and then we go in and get busy, right? Just early in the semester, so I have more to say. All right, about web design and HTML, one thing you're going to have to take seriously is how you treat your folders. So I just want to say something to be very clear to each of you. Some of you guys hate folders and are just messy and throw things all over. Some of you love folders, and you've got folders for everything. And I'll bet you have a right sock drawer and a left sock drawer at home. That kind of compulsive behavior is going to be just as bad as not having any folder. So let me just tell you what's reasonable and what isn't, right? Every time we get together, we're going to be working with a new folder. because we make mini websites the next few classes, mini websites. Now, they each have a folder, but if you're a neat person and you want to put them all in one big BMCC folder or whatever you want to call it, MMP 100 folder, you could do that. But there's one special reason why, just to get started, why the websites need a separate folder. They all have the same name for their homepage. So there's always going to be an index.html. You can't have index1.html, index2.html. That won't work. That will not work. There's only one name for a homepage. So that's one of the many reasons why every website needs a separate folder, because you can't have 3 documents or 4 with the same name sharing a folder. Also, when we were the link yesterday, remember we did one link yesterday? I want to do more of that today. You don't have to write fancy code to say where to go find the other page. It just knows the folder. That's home, you know, to them, to the pages. The root, we like to call it. It's the root. So now what I'm saying is, let's make a folder. All right, so let me put this aside. I'm going to put all this aside, actually. Right? And I'm going to make a folder. Now, where you make the folder is really up to you. I'm making it on my desktop right now. So I'm going to control-click on my desktop and make new folder. Or I could do click on my desktop and do File menu, new folder from here. So I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to ask you to make the new folder wherever you're comfortable. Now, I think going forward, I'm going to name my folders after the date. So this is May 28. So I'm just going to write MMP 100 May 28. I'm going to ask you to open your folder and leave it open. Now, yesterday, well, we got a great start, but I just want to point out that yesterday we had 3 things out that we needed, and we're going to need the same 3 things. We need the folder out for that website, which we just made. So you need it out and open, right? We're going to need Sublime, which we're about to get, and we're going to need the browser. And I keep pushing Chrome on everybody. So right now, I want to start by getting Sublime out next. So yesterday, most of you had Sublime, and you should know how to find your own programs. It's hard for me to help from here, right? Sublime Text. And it's going to often ask you if you want a new version, and just click cancel. I haven't really seen any difference in their versions in quite a while. Now, I want to ask you something. You may be seeing a big blank page in Sublime, or you may be seeing yesterday's code. So I really don't know what accounts for some of us seeing one thing and some of us seeing the other. But if you do have yesterday's code out, you know, you're seeing a bunch of code here, right? Then click that red button, which will not close Sublime. It's only going to close the page. You could say save or don't save, it's up to you. Then you just get a new page, because if you look up top, all the menus still say Sublime Text, File, Edit, blah, blah. So you're still in Sublime. You can do File menu, New File. We used New File yesterday. So guys, let me just get that out of the way. In my class, always put away the old stuff till we get to the midterm. Midterm's going to take a couple days, right? But till then, we're doing mini sites. All right. Let's begin at the beginning. So this is the start, and this is the end. I'd like you to join me. Now, I just want to say a couple things. Capital letters are not okay between the brackets. These are called angle brackets, right? And you probably remember them from high school math. Less than and more than, right? But we use them a lot in HTML, these angle brackets. They got to be lowercase letters in there. Remember what this means, what you see on my line 8 right now. That's a random number of returns I hit, by the way. I just wanted to make some room. That slash means I'm over. It's the end. You know, if you had a vacation tag, you want the closing vacation tag as far down the road as you can, because it's over. This just means goodbye. Now, I want to remind you of something. Inside the HTML, there's always 2 sections that matter the most. I'm going to ask you to make your head section now and try to imitate what I've got. The head section is smaller, and today it's only going to get a little bigger than it was yesterday. Yesterday, it only had one item in it, which was the title tag. And the title tag was what made your browser have a tab. So give me a second here for a minute before we move into that. I have this tab that says post attendee, Zoom, class 3 Thursday, mail. I got inboxes. Those are all title tags, right? So you got to take your title tags very seriously. All right, let's go inside there and prepare the title tag. Yesterday, somebody asked me, do I have to indent? No, but you might want to. So I use tab a lot. All right, and let's make the title. We started a theme yesterday I'd like to take a little further today, right? So I'm just going to call this Animals of Earth. And let's close that title up. A quick word. It wouldn't matter if it looked like that. It would just be sloppy code. It would work. You know, the code doesn't care about these big gaps. So we're just putting gaps where they suit us. So the title's small, it's neat. Now I want to say something. Be real careful about that little bit of code because that should be the easy part. All the interesting stuff mostly happens in the body. So let's go ahead and make the body. I'm on line 5, but all that matters is that it follows the head section, which already closed. Now here's a concern that I have about the body. The body has got to close also. So if you're feeling distracted right now, right, try to find a way to come in with me, right? You can't skip these basics because we're going to be doing this a lot. Now, I'm going to repeat something from yesterday. This is essence of web page. If you're into this, this is the first thing you'd want to memorize. Everything's built on this. And I got to say something just to be thorough about it, right? Some people are going to say, hey, Ira, you left this out, or you left this other thing out, or this third thing out. And I'll be adding some of them later in the semester. What I'm doing right now is showing you the bare bones. This is the minimum that makes a web page work. And then I'm going to build on it from there. Okay, but that's no fun. What's fun is when you start having something in the body. So we're going to just test our code a little bit. So could you write a testing sentence? Testing, oops. Testing my code, right? Yesterday I just said write a simple sentence. I'm writing testing my code. Okay, so we've got the bones down. We want to build on that today. Now we haven't saved yet. And I want to say something to anybody who saved early. I respect that, except for you might have broken it. So here's what I want to say something about saving when you're making web pages. The name is critical. You remember yesterday when we wrote links, the links look for pages by the file name. So when you give your file names, you really want to think it through, right? They always end in .html. But what is this page called? Can anybody shout it out? This is going to be the home page.
Index.
That's right, index.html. So let's go ahead and save it that way. All right, save. File menu save, or Command S on a Mac, or Control S on Windows. And let's be real careful before you click your save button. So we agreed that the name has to be index.html. And that's only the home page. The other thing is, it's got to go in the right folder. If I save this now, I'm going to be lost. So I put mine on the desktop, my folder. So I wrote the name, and I'm going to use this sidebar here, which is a Mac sidebar, but I don't think it's too different on Windows. I'm going to go to the desktop where I left my folder. You might have left your folder somewhere else, which is perfectly okay. Just find today's folder. So this is my folder today, May 28th, right? Yep. I'm going to double click it. So again, I'm on a Mac. I apologize for that. You guys will have to just fill in the blank if you're on a different kind of computer. At school, we would be using Macs. Doesn't really matter. I got the right name. I found the right folder. It's open up top. I'm ready to click save. What you should be getting right away is a little bit of visual feedback, you know, a little thumbs up from Sublime. Your colors have changed. So that means it recognizes that you wrote code. Also, in the bottom right corner, not that it matters too much, but in the bottom right corner of Sublime, it says HTML. So the next thing you want to do is you want to take a look in your folder and see if it's in there. Now listen, before we go the next step, I want to do something we didn't do yesterday. So hear this out. So you remember yesterday, at least one person was a little concerned that their icon looked different than mine. Now this is the Chrome icon. Now the truth of it is, I could open this up in several browsers. Now since I do this professionally, I keep at least 3 or 4 browsers around because I want to see how they behave. So I could open it in any browser. But what that icon means is if I double click it, it's going to go to Chrome. The icon's just telling me on this computer, my default browser is Chrome. So if you're seeing a different icon right now, you might want to take a moment and set Chrome to the default. Now I'm going to do this really quickly Mac style. So I want to say something to be reassuring. If you're on Windows and you don't know how to do this, you could look it up later, or you could just ignore it. There's more than one way to handle this. But if you're on a Mac or you already know how to do it, you might find it more convenient to change your default. So I'm going to do this real quickly. To tell Chrome to be the default, first open Chrome. So now I think about it, this is going to be the same on any computer, I'm pretty sure. So open Chrome. Now, what I want to do is I want to go to the Chrome menu. Yes, because even the browser gets menus on the top. I don't know how often you use them, but I'm in Chrome. So at the top, I'll see the Chrome menu, and I'm going to go to Chrome menu, Preferences. And this is where I get to say, listen, you're the one I want to use. Chrome Preferences. So I think it's somewhere around halfway down. It should say default, you know, something about being the default. Here it is, default browser. Mine says Google Chrome is the default, so I don't have to do anything. Yours, if it's not already set like mine, it might say make Chrome the default. Why not? I'm not making this mandatory, by the way, but if you want to, you should be seeing it now. All right, in any case, I'm going to close this particular setting. All right, now regardless of the choice you just made, you could still join me on the very next step. You need all three out. Now, let me stop for a moment because I keep saying this one theme. The minimum when making a website is these three objects out: an open folder, a code editor, and the browser. In a few days, we're going to add Photoshop, and then you'll have 4 tools, and that's going to be the 4 main tools for quite some time. Now, about getting it in here, if it is the default, you could just double click it. So if you're seeing the Chrome icon, you could just double click it. If it isn't the default, why not do this? Open yourself a new page in Chrome and just drag it and drop it. I want to be clear about something. There are more ways you could get it open, but this is getting a little boring, so I'll come back to those later. I want to make sure that we stay motivated. So this is what I want to ask you. At this stage, here's what you should be seeing. You should be seeing the sentence, whatever you wrote. That's your first bit of content. You should be seeing the tab that says Animals of Earth. And for anyone who's interested, you're also seeing the path here in Chrome. So depending on what your computer, what kind of computer you're on, I'm on a Mac, so it says users. It says the name of my user account, and then that my desktop, and then it goes to my folder, and it goes to my page. This is worth getting to know, because some of you are going to make mistakes and save things to the wrong folders. And there's going to be one way you're going to know. Oh, wait, why does that say May 27th? Uh-oh, saved it to yesterday's folder, you know? So this is good to look at. So listen, I want to ask you something. I'm just kind of, I need to know, you know, curiosity. I haven't checked my chat today. I apologize, people who lean on chat. Give me a minute. I really getting used to that. Okay. All right, no emergencies. Could you give me either thumbs up physically or emojis or some kind of sign? You could chat me. Is this behaving?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So listen, if it's not behaving, let me know early, but I want to show you this really very little that could have gone wrong, right? Other than the code at this point. You know, if you found your own folder, it says your own document, let's call it, your own page. So I want to say something that's a little weird before we go in and take this much further. What's weird about the, let's call it the document, the .html document, in this case, the home page, index.html is, you could look at it 2 ways. They're both expressions of the exact same thing. You could look at it in the browser, or you could look at it in code. You know how in science fiction movies, sometimes there's a character who looks at something and they see code? You know, like in the Matrix or something. in a weird way, the HTML is like that. You could see it as code, or you could see it the way your audience sees it. If you wrote scripts for movies, you'd feel that way. The script is a piece of art, but I want to see the movie. It's very much the same idea, right? Let's go work with our code. Does anyone need a hand before I move further?
I have a question.
Yes, ask Jonathan, and then I'll ask. I'll answer whoever else.
So if we were to move the folder
Yes.
inside another folder, um,
Good question.
is it still gonna operate the same way, or?
So here's my answer. Great question, right? If you close everything and then move it to another folder to keep, a larger container for it, you're fine. But if you move it to another folder now, nothing's going to work. And I can tell you exactly why. This path will be wrong.
Okay.
Right? And so the browser is going to say, like, what? Page not found. Have you ever seen page not found on the internet?
Yes.
That's usually because somebody neatened things up and they move things to the wrong folders, and now no one noticed, and you went online and you can't find the page. It's a great question. So in a weird way, you have two choices, Jonathan, because I get the feeling you're an organized guy, right? One, you could make a simple folder, and each day and at the end of the day, close everything and put it in your, bigger folder. That's one viable way. Or you could make all your folders at the beginning in one larger folder. Just remember which folder you're using inside. That's called a subfolder. So each day you'd make a new subfolder, but you'd have to remember what you did, because you have to be saving that day's work into the right folder.
Got it. Okay.
So listen, guys, I realize this has got to be some of the nerdiest stuff you're going to hear me say all semester. It really is. The thing is, I like to do so much fun stuff, and it always requires these little detailed things to make sure I don't waste time with just broken things, really. And by the way, when it comes to code, that's a sad reality. Some jobs are mostly fixing broken things. If you're making websites, not so much. But if you're in the back end, running e-commerce, or you're writing actual programs, one of my teachers built Amazon.com, and he was like, all we did was fix broken things. He did 2/3 of my day was fixing broken things. And I thought, I don't want to do that. So I'm what's called a front-end designer, not a back-end designer. All right, in any case, let's do some front-end design right now together. All right, let's go back to the code. So again, just to borrow what, oh gosh, you know what? I think there was another question. Just one repeat.
Oh no,
Nicole, I'm coming right to you. Just to recap, don't change folders in the middle of working. That's the moral of the story. All right. Afterwards, you have more freedom. Yes, Nicole.
Oh no, I was just going to ask while you were talking if I could see the code, because I had to start all over again.
That's my fault. I got to keep this code out. I got to get in that habit.
Another question.
Yes.
If you save the code under HTML instead of index HTML, what does that do? Because I noticed when I did that, my codes didn't turn pink.
Yes. You know why? I think maybe what you did is this. Maybe you had a new page, right? And when you saved it, it gave you a default name. And since you wrote HTML on it, it guessed that you did HTML.
Yeah.
But it didn't know what to call it, and it called it HTML.html.
Yeah.
You can't let it save by itself.
Okay.
It's always going to save wrong. So what you could always do, by the way, if you make a mistake like that, is you can go back to the file menu and choose Save As.
Oh.
Save As. Look what happened.
Okay.
Right, look at that. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So that means you click Save a little too quickly.
Okay.
Right? So what you should have done is highlighted it, given it the correct name, and then click Save.
Okay.
So if you use Save As, the only problem with that is later on you might want to clean up. There's going to be extra pages in your folder.
Okay.
The original. All right, so let's dive in a little. So right after you know it works, by the way, I do what you just did every single time. Check it in the browser. It works. Yay. Then I move on. The next thing is I typically bring in content. So let me say a word about that. When I say bring in content, I mean I go get the stuff that the client gave me, the writing, typically, right? And I'll go get it all. And you know what I'll actually do? And this might sound bizarre, but I'll take this out. I'll get the article or whatever it is. Let's say it's that simple. And I'll just paste the whole thing in here. But then once it's in here, I'll break it down into headlines and paragraphs and whatever else I might need. But right now, we don't have anyone giving us content, so we're going to make some of our own, right? I'd like to remind you about this. So let's just jump in with H1. Now, I'm sure a bunch of you guys remember this. The H tags make headlines, right? So this is a headline for this particular website all about the animals of Earth. And the headline is going to say something like, the diversity of life on Earth. Now, when you start a headline, you better close it, because that headline is going to be big and it's going to be bold. And if you don't close it, the whole page is going to have oversized text. So it's going to look like you're doing it for the visually impaired. Make sure to close it. Now, what we're talking about now is saving edits. So that's an edit. Every time you make a change, we call it an edit. Notice what happens. Right next to the name of your file, there's a gray dot. And that means you made a change that needs to be saved. So all I have to do is File menu Save, or Command S, or Control S if you're on Windows. Right? If it does this, by the way, this means give me money. And right now you don't have to do that. You don't give Sublime money. You just click cancel for now. All right. So if a little X shows up, that means you saved the changes, the edits. You go right to the browser and refresh. For refreshing, you could click this icon, or you could do Command R if you prefer, or Control R. That works in every browser, I believe. And you're seeing the change you made. Nice. Is your headline working out?
Yep.
Does it look good? So listen, I'm going to say something. I like using subheads because I'm a writer and I have a little history in news, which affected me. And I realized if it's an important article, when you read the newspaper, right, the important articles are like, you know, Trump refuses to wear a mask, you know, and then, you know, underneath it, it's going to say, despite health officials telling him it saves lives, right? And it's between the two ideas that you choose whether to read the article or not, right? So I want to say something about smaller headlines. I want to show you something. Could you go underneath the H1? I'm going to ask you to do something strange with me. Could you write H4? Oops. See, we get 6 sizes to choose from. The numbers have nothing to do with the order they're in. So let's just see how an H4 looks, right? So the diversity of life on Earth, I'm going to say, you know, similar to what I said yesterday, land, sea, and sky. That's what I'm going to write, right? And I'm going to close up my H4. So remember, that slash, and make sure you're using the right number. They got to match the left and right. So let's save it and get a look. That's way too small. All right, I thought I had a good idea, but it's too small. Let's go back and try an H3. Remember, if you make that change, go to the end of your headline and change it there too. The opening tag and the closing tag, and save it, come back and refresh it. So, you know, when you think about it, gee, if an H4 is that small, are you ever going to use it? This is even kind of small. The choice is really yours. I am going to go back to H2 after all, and I'm going to save it, and I want to come back and refresh it. Now, I want to say something to you. Let me make sure you can see my code in the meantime, as I promised. Right. I want to say something to you. There are only 6 sizes of headline. Now, soon, you're going to learn how to change the sizes. So they become more flexible than it sounds. You know, especially since H3 is really too small, so I'd be stuck working with only H1 and H2. But later on, I could really take some creative, you know, freedom with what these are going to look like. So let's hold off. We're going to do a little of that today, by the way, hopefully, right? So I just want to say one more thing about the headlines. Let's stop for a minute. I need to include just a moment of web design history. And so bear with me. These tags were made by scientists, not by designers. My generation, and maybe the generation just before me, maybe, were the people who took the scientists' code and started to make it look artistic. So how did the scientists see H1? Check this out. H1 meant highest priority, number one priority. So that when they were searching, a scientist working for the military is searching for atom bomb, right? It knows that a page that has H3 atom bomb somewhere on the page, it's probably part of a whole bunch of weapons. But if a page actually had an H1 with atom bomb, it must have all been about the atom bomb. It was the highest priority on the page. So Google and earlier Yahoo and search engines in general know that. And they'll prioritize. Things with H1s are seen as more important. Things as H6 are seen as not that important. Stuff in the middle of a paragraph is even less important as it's trying to index your page. But I want to say something to be fair. So in 1950, 1960, when the web was born, that's how you had to look at it. By the time you got to the 1990s, artists started saying, well, I don't really care about all of that. I just like that it's bold and it's big. And they started just ignoring the priorities. So right now we're going to have to see how that works for you. For right now, let's stay primarily visual. We're trying to organize the text. All right, if it's still working, I want to add some dummy text onto this page. So let's go down another line in the code. Now, I'm hoping you remember Lorem ipsum from yesterday. And I just want to say something in the interest of being clear, though, right? Soon, I want to get you real text, because it really does affect how you treat this stuff when it's real words that you understand. But right now, we're just learning basic formatting. So we're going to use this old Latin dummy text that we used yesterday. All right, so on the next available line, could you write Lorem? This works in Sublime Text. I don't know if it works in other code editors or not, but it's a cool little shortcut. After you write that, and make sure you don't have a capital L, hit your tab key. So if you missed it, I'm going to do one more time. For dummy text, we write Lorem with no capital letters, and then we hit tab. The thing is, I need like 3 times that much text. So if you're good at copying and pasting, give me 3 times more. If not, just join me. Highlight the Latin, and do Command-C or Control-C, unless you prefer the edit menu. We're talking about copy.
You want us to tag it with P?
After you triple it.
Okay.
Good question, though. Because it's just too small. It's not going to feel like a paragraph. So at least triple it. You could do it even 4 times as much. So, you guys, I want to just interject a word about copy and paste. If you look at your keyboard, you'll notice that C and V are next to each other. What's even more interesting is X, C, and V are next to each other. X means cut it out because I want to put it somewhere else. C, as you know, means copy, means leave it where it is, but I also am going to make a copy. And V means paste. The only reason they used V for paste is so the 3 could be in a row. Cut, copy, and paste. Work together. And also the letter P is used for printing. So anyway, if you've got them all, like the gentleman just asked, yes, let's make them into a paragraph. So you go back to the beginning and add a P tag. And then you go to the very end and you use a closing P tag. I'm just backing up a little bit so everybody could see this whole section. You know, I did leave something out, which was, concerned a few people yesterday. And by the way, I was kind of delighted that anyone even cared. You know, a few people are like, hey, I got more lines than you do, and you notice I have a similar problem today. The one paragraph thinks it's line 8 and line 9. To be honest, if I'm in a rush, I'm going to ignore it because it's going to look the same to my audience. It really only affects me. But really, on my own work, when I have the time, I always clean this stuff up because it gets confusing. Isn't it great that I could say to you, everybody look at line 12? So it really does help to keep it neat. I'm going to highlight all the Latin, just the Latin stuff. This program has that cool shortcut, Command-J. That technically means join, but it means join it into one line. So Command-J just neatens it up. So that's, if you want it. Can you guys save it and make sure it's working. Let's go to the browser and refresh it in the browser. Now, I want one more paragraph, then I want to show you something little, and then I want to do some linking. I want another page or two. But first, let's make one more paragraph. So what I'm going to do right now is speed things up. Since it's all Latin anyway, I'm going to steal the last paragraph and copy the whole thing this time at once with the P tag and the closing P tag. So I want you to highlight that whole paragraph, including its tags, and Command C or Edit Menu Copy. I want to say something to you that may be convenient. You know, you could zoom in on the text when you need to, and you could zoom it back when you need to. Sometimes when I need to select whole things, I'll back up. So I did that with Command minus and Command plus. Naturally on Windows, Control minus and Control plus. And that just does this. It's kind of cool. It's probably here too from the View menu. Where would that be? View. My brain just suddenly stopped. Let's do it with Command plus and Command minus because it surely is convenient. All right, if you did copy it all, go to the next available line or make one if you need to and paste it. Could everybody save and have a look? So save it, go back to the browser and refresh it. I just want to visit for a minute. How is everybody?
Good.
Now listen, if it's broken and you want to tell me about it, you turn on your mic and tell me, you know, and again, we'll get used to screen sharing soon enough. You may need to show me your code. Look, we had a hard time yesterday, but it happens now and then, you know. And you know, that fella's extra smart, I can tell. So it just happens, you know, whatever. Or you could chat me if you're shy. So I'm looking at my chat. But if everything's working fine, I'm going to move forward. Before we go the next step, which is let's make some more pages and see how that feels, link them, I want to say something about responsive design. This word web designers love. We always say it to each other. Well, is that website responsive? How do you feel about responsive design? Well, I love responsive design. And the reason being is people use the browser at different sizes. So we're responding to the size. Now also, maybe you're on a tablet or sometimes you're on a tablet, it's a different size. And then maybe you turn the tablet and it feels like a different size. And then you whip out your phone. You know, it's got to look good on the phone, right? So I want to tell you guys something. I'm going to do this sort of quickly before we move on. So this is Ironworks here, not the BMCC. This is my own, you know, website. And I want to show you something about responsive design. I'm going to use this website because naturally I know it best, being my own. But I want to show you something. Here we go. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to try this out. You got the gist of it, right? It looks real similar, right, to the big browser, right? But it's slightly rearranged, you know, right? That's because it's responsive. Now, what you just did is also responsive. It's simple, but it's responsive. And I want to prove it to you. If you go to your page in the browser and grab the edge of the browser, watch how it changes. So I'm getting more lines because my paragraphs are responding. And even if I get too small for the headline, which it won't let me do right now, I'll show you tricks to force it later. But you know what? I'm going to give you a peek, right? I'm not going to explain this now, so don't ask because it's going to take too much time. I just want to give you a peek at something. I promise I'll give you a better look at this later. This right now is roughly what this website would look like on an iPhone, roughly, you know, roughly speaking. So you can tell it really is responding in any number of ways, right? I'm going to get out of here because we don't really know enough to use that feature just yet. All right. So I would like to just say something quickly. If you're going into this direction big time, you know, like after my class, you're really intending on living this out. You're going to study the most for a little while is responsive design. I'm definitely going to tell you where to go to learn more about it when we're ready. I got a great resource for you, the #1 resource, which happens to be free. So a lot of you are going to love it. In fact, we're probably going to get a little visit there today, even. So for right now, though, let's start building some more pages, right? It's a perfect place to go. All right. So guys, I want to share something with you. If the website really was this simple, let's say it was like this, just had nicer color, better font, and a photograph. And this was what the website looked like. And let's say every page looked like this. I would steal this code repeatedly. And I'd use as much of it as I could for every single page. Some stuff I'd throw out, but some stuff I'd keep instead of hand typing it. We're going to quickly make 3 more pages. Now, before we do that, I have some good advice. This is different than the way we did it yesterday. We want to put the links on first, even before we make the pages. So one thing that's going to help us is let's get clear on our mission. We want 4 pages, and this is what a real regular person is going to think of them as. Home, land, sea, and sky. Now we know that the first page is really called index.html. We're going to create a page. Don't do it without me, okay? Honestly, you have to wait because it's going to get harder, not easier. The other page is land.html we're going to make. We're going to make c.html, and we're going to make sky.html. You have to join me in this exact order, though, for it to be a smooth ride, right? So you're on your index page. Could you make yourself a line of space under the body tag? And what I want you to do is this. I'm going to use capital letters just because I'm going to like the way they look, but you don't have to. So I'm going to write home, land, sea. I'm going to make this a little bigger. So notice I'm right after the body tag. Anything after that comes to the top. I currently have a headline there, but I want to put stuff above the headline. So I'm writing home, land, sea, sky. All I want to do, that's got no code around it really, right? It's not a headline, it's not a paragraph, it's not anything yet. Let's just save it quickly, go to the browser and get a look. I'm going to bring my code right back. I just want to make sure I didn't break anything. Home, land, sea, sky. Looks good. So here's my code. Now, we're going to need to put a little code to the left and right of each of those words. So it's going to be neater if we do this. Let's move them down to 4 lines. Now, I got to repeat something from yesterday. It's not going to look like that in Chrome. It's not going to look that way in the internet. Right? It really won't. You can prove it to yourself and save it right now. Go refresh the browser. It's still on 1 line. If I wanted them on top of each other, I'd need to know the code to make that look that way. I'm doing this just for our own convenience. Does everybody have all 4 links ready?
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to go to the left of the first one and do exactly this. Go to the right and do this. You might notice Sublime's going to try to help you when you write that closing tag. Keep an eye on it. Because if you're not looking.
Got me in trouble yesterday.
Was it giving you trouble, Andy? You're going to learn.
After I reviewed my work, I realized that a lot of the stuff that I was doing was duplicating itself. And today I'm realizing that Sublime is doing it for me.
So Andy, I got to share something with you. So I'm not a good typist. And for that reason, I have to look a lot. So I see when that's happening. People who are better typists, sometimes they don't even look. They're just like typing, and they wouldn't know.
No, I look at the keyboard. I look at the keyboard when I do it, not the screen, so it gets me.
So we have to look at both because you're going to start to like it because what's happening is it generally takes a very good guess of what closing tag you need. So can you watch this? Watch this. So let's say I write home now, right? I'm just going to write a left bracket. Then the slash. Left bracket slash, and it knew which one to close. It just typed this. I didn't type that. But sometimes it gets it wrong. So I like Sublime, and most code editors will give a little bit of assistance, right? But you're right. You do have to keep an eye on it. So could we do the same thing before land and each of those links? So be very careful. I'm asking you to do it without copying and pasting because your body memory is going to help you remember this if you actually type it. You guys, you could really trust me on stuff like that. I've had 3,000 students at least, maybe 4,000. So I've kind of seen what works and what doesn't at great length, So hand typing for a little while is definitely in your best interest. You're going to remember it. I almost wish they were 10 links, you know, that we'd all remember it forever. Now, here's the thing. They're going to look different right now. Of course, they won't work yet, but they're going to look different. So let's get a peek. Can you save it when you're ready? Right? And then go to the browser and refresh it. And I just see one thing I don't like on mine that I'm going to fix. The home isn't in capitals. There's nothing wrong with that. It just looks bad because the other three I typed capital letters. So I'm going to fix that little thing. Oops. I'm going to save it. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to refresh it. That looks better. Now, you know what I didn't expect? They're all purple. That's usually the color you see when you visited a page. Now, I think the reason is we never filled in the quotes, and for some reason it's acting strangely. I don't know. Let's fill in the quotes. So let's go to the home link, and I'm hoping everybody knows what to type in this one.
Professor,
Yes.
I have one question.
Okay.
So, like, as you made home, land, sea, and sky, right?
Uh-huh.
They are like horizontal. So, can we make them as a vertical too, in a
We
row?
can. And you know something? I like the way you think. I got to tell you. But what I'm going to do as the tour guide is I want to hold off on that kind of thing because we need to know some stuff well before that. So it's a design question you're asking me. And we can do it. You know, I don't want to give you bad habits. Can I hold off on that answer?
Yeah, sure.
I want to wait till we're ready for me to give you good answers because there's ways to do it, but they're a little hack.
Mm-hmm.
I want to avoid hacks, you know, as much as possible. You're welcome. I'm sorry, my house
Also,
got
Professor,
really hot. It must be
on the design side,
Yes.
you know, I noticed the diversity text. It's one size. Now, that high priority one, is that the biggest it gets, or can I just have a high priority with no numerical value?
So you know what you're going to love? You do need that numerical value, but later today, if all goes well, so I'm going to have to speed up a little bit, we're going to restyle that H1. And what that means is every single H1 on the whole website is going to change at once. So that's just crazy. So you do a 100-page website and you change your mind. Oh, I wish all the headlines looked like this. You make one change. The whole 100-page website updates. It's just crazy and wonderful. So yes, you'll be able to change it, but you will have to use the number. So what you might do later on is say, I want my H1 this big, my H2 this big, and I'm going to make the H3 more useful, but assigning it a useful size. And then for the rest of the website, you just type in the code you want, the H1, and it just magically looks good. So I want to get there today. I hope that answers the question. So you're going to see it for yourself a little later. So listen, guys, I want to tell you what the goal is. We're going to speed it up a little bit. The first page is really called index.html. And as I said, I asked you to type that with lowercase letters earlier today. But if you didn't, you know, if you really did name it in your folder with a capital I, please use the capital I now. In the future, I'm going to ask you to name all your HTML pages with lowercase letters because it's easier to remember. They really do have to match when you make links. These quotes are just saying, look in my folder for something by this exact name. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. On faith, I know I'm going to make a land page, and I'm going to call it this. I'm going to make a C page, and I'm going to call it this. You could guess what I'm going to call sky, right? You cannot leave out .html, folks. So let's get really used to that. Every web page ends with that. That's how it knows it's a web page. .doc means I'm Microsoft Word. .psd means I'm Photoshop. You know, this means I'm a web page. So here's the weird part of what you just did. Can you save it and go to the browser and refresh? So it's interesting that the colors changed in Chrome. Only the page that actually has been visited is purple. The other 3 pages now have never been visited, so they're blue. Now, the only thing that's really kind of odd about what I just did is I named pages before I made them. Right? Now, this is something I figured out earlier to help me make, to be very frank, to help me get paid sooner. If I make my homepage very complete, I could copy the code for all the other pages, or at least many of them, saving myself incredible amounts of work. And here's the best example. If I already know it's a 4-page website, I make 4 links right away because I'm just going to copy and paste this stuff to make the other 3 pages. So could you look at yours really hard to make sure it looks like mine? Because it's going to be hard to troubleshoot if we don't get this right. So one thing you should notice is the way your version of Sublime is treating colors. You know, if one of these looks different in some way, right, you have to figure it out. Why did this just turn white? There's a mistake above it. I left a quote art above it. So if your colors look wrong, you must have done something wrong. Here's common errors. So here, it didn't even give me any response, but it's wrong. I never closed the C link. So please look at each line. And I want to tell you what you're looking for, right? Because we're going to repeat this quite often. A and href have to be separate. It's not one word. A is actually the tag. This is called an attribute. It's a quality of the A tag. We're going to be learning more attributes. The A tag only works with this attribute. Equals. Remember how I made you make 2 quote marks before? I want everyone to get in that habit because otherwise it'll break. The right side has to have the slash. And it has its own angle brackets. I'm asking you to stare this down. I know it's painful, right? Because some of you are so sure you have it right, and you probably do. But it's so easy to make a small error. All right. If this is right, we're in good shape. Make sure it's saved, and I'm going to ask you to copy the whole thing. Now, yesterday, I suggested 2 shortcuts, and which didn't work for everybody, so I'm going to do 3 today. Usually on a Mac, Command A will work in any program. It simply means select everything. A is for all, select all. Control A should do the same thing on Windows. Control A. Now, if that doesn't work, Sublime does have a selection menu with that item on it. Select all. So you could do that, selection menu, select all. Could you copy that code, Command C? We're about to make the land page. Now, those of you who are restless, I understand, but please don't make the other pages yet, right? You might get it right, but if you don't, it's going to be really hard to fix. So let's do one at a time. So you highlighted your index page, right? You did either Command C or Edit Menu Copy. All right, or Control C if you're on Windows. Could everybody then do File Menu, New File? Shortcut fanatics, you might notice Command N is a shortcut for New Document, or Control N on Windows. I'm going to use the File menu. Now what you should be seeing is 2 tabs. Leave them both out. The earlier page was the index page. We're about to make land. So could you paste here? Now what's beautiful about this is, let's say your client just wanted you to get started, but they didn't deliver the paragraphs to you, right? They just got you some headlines to help you get started. All we would do is change the headlines because everything else is written. It's going to have the same links, right? So let's change the 2 headlines. This is going to be the land page. So on line 10, we want to say something about life on land. So let's actually write that. Why not? Here's the H1, life on land. Beneath it, we got creative and added subheads. So let's stick with that through the whole website. So this page is going to have a different line 11. So here's my H2. I'm going to say something about life on land. That means us, other mammals, and more. I'm not going to list everybody. I am tempted to write insects, but then I'm thinking I don't want to leave out the reptiles. So I'm just going to say and more. Now here's the thing. Let's save this page, and we do have to save it exactly by this name. So I want to be very clear. When you're working on your own, you're making up the names of your pages, right? Right now, you're all joining me so that no one gets lost. But if you already wrote it as a link, then you better make sure to satisfy that link. If you tell someone to go to Maple Street and meet you on the corner, there better be a Maple Street, right? So we're about to make land.html. Please join me and do Command S, Control S, or File Menu Save. So there's two things to check. You want to call it land.html, and you want to make sure you're in today's folder. This is why we don't want to move folders while we're working, right? Because this is going to, get very confusing and probably break. But I'm in today's folder. I wrote the right name. I'm just going to click save. I want to prove something to you before we go any further. In your browser, you're not looking at the land page. You're looking just at index. And I don't want to drag it out. I could, but I don't want to drag it out. I want to check out my links. So all I'm going to do is go to the browser. Remember, you're still on your home page. You're still on index. And let's click the land link and see if it works. If it works, congratulate yourself. See, I made a little error over here. Let me just fix that while I'm here. I'm going to save. I'm going to come back. I'm going to refresh. There you go. So now I can go back and forth between two pages. But if I go to the third page, uh-oh, file not found, because I didn't make it. So I'm going to go move forward. Now, before I move forward, I got to ask you a question. First, are your links working?
Yes. Yes.
So, you could tell it is really hard.
Yes.
Excellent. That makes me happy. I feel bad when it isn't working, because usually I could troubleshoot, like in class, it takes seconds, because the early mistakes are always the same. Someone left out a right side quote mark. You know what the most common error is? Spelling. You were like so excited, you wrote land with two N's. You drank too much coffee and you just couldn't help your twitchy finger. And then, of course, it's page not found. How you doing, Crystal?
I'm doing all right.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm checking my chats just to see if anyone with mic issues. Nope. Everybody looks good. All right. So you listen, I'll be honest. I know some of you are ready to be let loose on the other two pages, right? Can you hold back? Let's do at least one more together. And then I'm going to ask everybody to do the last. How about that? I think that's a good way to do it. Let's do one more together then. Let me fold this up. Come back to the code. So we got two tabs out. And notice I'm going in order on my links only because, frankly, I'm easily confused. So if I could find an easy, I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding with you. I juggle so much information that my head feels like it's going to explode. So what I do is I create really easy habits for everything else. I always know where my keys are. I always know where my wallet is, because I'll never find them if I put them in a different place. So with code, I'm the same way. I know I did the index page. I know I did land. I better do C right now. Now, I want to say something to you. When you copied, you did select all a few minutes ago. That stuff's still in memory. So I could actually make a new page and paste right away. Now, if it doesn't work, you might have copied something for a different reason. In the meantime, if you did any copying, select all again, copy again. I don't think you did copy anything new.
We copied the word land.html.
So yeah, what's that?
You had us copy the word land.html.
Did I? Oh, glad you said that. Oops. Can everybody then highlight either page? Either page's code is fine. So again, select all. Or selection menu, select all. All right, please copy. Command C, Control C. You can see it's very repetitive, or copy. Every time you're ready to make a new page, here's one concern I have. We'll be doing the final halfway through this class. The midterm, which I usually do in person. And I like to walk around and even help during the midterm. Because I'm fast just from having seen the same errors over and over again, I want to make sure that we stay very neat. Here's a weird error. Student gets so into it, they forgot they didn't copy to a new page, and they start making changes on their last page. At the end, they're like, why do I have two pages? I'm like, wow, you kept on writing over your own pages. We don't want to do that. All right. So if you already copied, could you do File Menu New? So we're in Sublime. You're asking for a new file, which is really a new page. You're pasting again. So we're about to make the C page. Let's change the headlines first. So this says Life on Land. I could just write Life on Sea. Life in the Sea. Oh, why not? All right, I'm just gonna write Life of the Sea. I want to do something a little bit, less concrete for the H2. So I'm going to write the underwater world. Oops. Now, right now, the only thing that's critical, because we don't have paragraphs and we don't have photos, so we're still sticking with the dummy, right? We have 2 real headlines and a bunch of real links. The only thing left to do is to save it by the correct name. Let's save it, and I want to point out something about the importance of this, but let's save it first. File menu save. That's c.html, and it's got to go with its friends in the same folder. And again, to test it, we don't have to drag it out. We don't have to open it. I only want one website in my browser, So I'm just going to come here and I'm going to click my own link. See, I'm going to make sure the others work. Looks like I'm in good shape. Later on, I can go in and new photos, new text, really liven it up. It'll be good to know that it's working. I want to say something to you before I ask you to make the sky page. Right? It looks easy, right? And part of it is you got your tour guide next to you. Sort of. I'll zoom next to you, virtually next to you, right? And it really is kind of easy, but I'm also sharing with you cheats that I learned over the years because, I have a lot of art that I like to make that doesn't make money. So I take the things that do make money and I do them quicker. So I started to realize, oh, wow, if my homepage is rock solid on a simple website, I could just keep on borrowing my own code. Just change when the new information comes in, new words, new photos. But the structure there, the 4 big tags, HTML, head, title, body, right? The 4 biggies, I call them. We just copied it. I wrote all the links out. See, what's going to be hard is if we add a page after the next one, because we don't have the link. We'd have to go to every page and add a link. All right, so right now, though, we are prepared to easily add sky. I bet you some of you guys couldn't wait and already did it. If not, I'm going to ask you to do it now. I'm going to wait a minute or two. If you're really insecure and you want to wait, I don't mind. It's really up to you. And let's face it, no one's going to know. I'll leave the code out, but I don't think you need it because the real trick is you already have links to sky. You just have to make that page. I want you to copy and paste, change the headline so it's about the sky, birds and whatnot, right? And just make sure you save it under the right name because it's the only name that's going to work. I bet you some of you are done. Let me give it just another moment because folks are looking concentrated. And then I'm going to join you. All right, if anyone needs a hand, watch this. The premise is based on the first page working. The worst case scenario is you didn't test as you went along and you started copying that code without realizing it was already broken and it's a nightmare. And then you have to go to every single page and try to fix the same errors, which is just a nasty thing. So we've been testing every single step. And even though I do this a lot, I also test every single step. I've been through that mistake of getting cocky and just pasting and thinking I'm rocking when I'm not, right? All right, so I'm going to join you. If I'm not sure if the code is already copied, I'm going to select all now. And then I'm going to copy it. I'm ready to make that last page, sky. So let's do file menu, new file, or I'm doing it. And I'm going to paste. I better make some changes because I'll never know if it's working if I don't. So this is all about the sky. I got to keep reminding myself what my purpose is. So in my H1 here, I'm going to say flying beings of the sky. And I got to say something about the air. And then I'm just going to write life in the air. Really like the way that sounds. Life in the air. All right. Again, you got to save it, and you got to save it right. So that's definitely very extreme, uptight type of stuff. You know, by the way, before I learned this, I was a very big splashy painter, messy painter, you know, type that throws paint around a lot. So this deep level of detail was new to me. It might be new to you. All right, let's save it. Sky.html, lowercase letters. We got something very cool coming up next, I got to tell you. But let's make sure this is working. So I'm back in here and notice all these other tabs have nothing to do with the project, right? There are other things I keep open during class. This is all one browser window, you know, all by itself. I'm going to click Sky, which is the only one that hasn't been clicked. You could tell from the colors. And if it works, I don't like one thing just as a writer. That should be capital B. I'm going to save it, fix it, save it, come back and refresh it. All right, how did it go? Did that work out all right?
Yes.
So I got to warn you about just one thing. Like, I don't think I want to take the time today because there's something bigger I want to show you. You have 16 links. So I want that to sink in for a minute, right? Because your audience thinks you have 4. And for them, I guess that's true in their way. There's 4 pages, so there's 4 links. But you have the 4 links on each page, so you actually have 16 ahrefs. So you know what's possible? What's possible is you might click these links and they keep working, but then on one page, if I'm on the land page, it's possible I click C and it doesn't work. Now, if that happens, I have to figure out which page has the error. I'd have to go to the code for that page, land, and say C didn't work, and it would probably be something dumb like missing quote, you know, or, you know, a misspelling, something small. So I just got to point out there's 16 links. You got to keep that in mind. And the reason I'm mentioning that now is if we did add a 5th page, let's say we added underground. You know, I'm sure the population of the underground has got to be as big, probably 10 times the size now that I think about it, because they're mostly tiny creatures, right? I'd have to go to the other 4 pages to add a link. You know, so literally I'm going to have to write the new link. You know what? Let's do this real fast. I think we can handle it, right? So let's join me. All right, we're going to need to paste the whole page again. So if you're unsure whether it's still in memory, select all, Command C. This is going to take a little bit more effort. All right, could everybody make a new page and paste it? Now, we're inventing a page. It's like the client liked the website so much, they called you up and said, hey, we love it. Let's add a page. So let's start with the headlines. Let's go to H1 and say, underground life. And for the H2, I'm going to write beings below the surface. Now, we have not agreed on what to call this page, but you could see what the pattern is. I like one-word names, .html. I definitely like lowercase letters. So I'm going to call this underground.html. Could you join me? Let's save it. So all I did was change the same 2 lines, 10 and 11 in my case. Let's save it. And I'm going to call it underground.html. They all have to have that part. I'm checking my spelling because I'm going to use this in a minute. Underground looks good. I'm in the right folder. I'm going to save it. Now, we can't save this the way I want to because there's no link to click. You know, if I dragged it out of the folder, I could see it, but what good would that be? It needs to be part of the website. So let's join me on this same page here. We're going to start on this page, underground, and add a link. Could you add 1 line of space under your last link? You notice my last link's on line 9. So I just added a line. And this one here is going to say underground. Remember, this is what the audience sees, so you could type it any way you want. You know, I'm going with capital letters because I like the look. Every link has this on the left. Oops, sorry, not in caps, this part. And this on the right. Now, you could tell what I'm going to call this page, right? That's pretty obvious because I like obvious names because I don't want to have to think about it. I'm going to save my mind for deeper stuff, hopefully. Before I move forward, I want to make sure that everybody has their line 10. And save again. File menu, save. I need to say something quickly. This line here is a little risky because we're about to copy it to 4 other pages without testing it. So I'd rather you get a really hard look. Is there anything suspicious? Are both these quotes still here? Is the closing tag correct? Also, this part in the quotes, does it exactly match the name of the page? Now, if all that looks good, we're ready to actually copy it to the other pages. Could you take this line and Command C? What I'm trying to promote here is I really don't want to hand type too much. It's going to increase the chance of an error. So I'm copying. All right, I'm going to go in this order. Let's find your index page. I'm a little stuck there. There we go. Make a line of space after the prior link. Paste and save. Now I'm going to repeat that. Since you already wrote the link on the new page, you borrowed it, you copied it, and you went to index. You made some room, paste, and save. Please be sure you save each page after you change it. My next page is land. So I'm going to go to land. I'm just going to do the same thing. And I'm going to be very thankful it's not 100 pages, 100-page website. All right, I did it, but I didn't save it. I'm getting that gray dot. So I'm going to save again, Command S. This is why I like the shortcut. The next page should be C. So I'm going to C and I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to save it. And the next page is sky. And I'm going to save it. Before we test this in the browser, because I am ready, I want to give you a small recommendation. You notice how I've got 5 tabs because it's a 5-page website. But I like the tabs to be in the same order as the links. They don't have to, you know. Like I said, I'm in the habit of making things easy for myself because life is complex. So if it's in the same order, I won't get lost. So I want to show you something. I've got index first, then land, that's good, but then it should be C. So I'm going to go to C here and slide it over. Then it says sky. I'm going to go to sky and I'm going to slide it over. And why do I do that? Well, when I'm looking for stuff that every page should share, I could just go in order. Like index page, okay, it's got that new link on line 10. Land page, it's got that new link. I'm going in this order. C, it just helps me stay organized. Here's the new link. Because right now I got what? 20 links, really. Could you check that they're all saved? So they all have little X's, that means they're all saved. If any of them has a gray dot, just go to that one, save again. All right, could everybody go to the browser and refresh no matter what page you're actually looking at? It doesn't matter anymore. I happen to be on the land page, but they all have links. So I'm going to click underground. Yes. And I'm going to click the other links. And we got ourselves a little website. I want to mention something to you. Wouldn't have that been easier if we decided on a 5-page website when we started? Right? So this is why I like to really know what my goal is. If I'm talking to somebody, they're going to pay me for this, and we agree on 10 pages. That's the agreement, right? I'm putting those 10 links right down day one, even though I'm only working on the homepage. I'm still putting the 10 links right there. Because as soon as I'm ready to do the other 9 pages, I can copy all that stuff. But if in the middle we make changes, then I'm always like, oh no, now I got to think again. All right, where do I put this link? You know, go to each page, check, check, check. Oh no, it's missing on my land page. You know, they got to go figure out why. You guys with me?
Got it.
So I'm checking my chat. No, there's been no complaints. Does anyone know? Oh, you know, I promised I'd leave the code out more often. We didn't really change anything is the only thing. All we did was, the last step anyway, was make a new link and make sure every page had it. Resaved. Okay, guys, I want to take a deep breath and say something to you because we only have a half an hour. I'm not usually going to take breaks on a class this short, sometimes. But I want to say something to you quickly before we move forward. I want to get, you know, often the last thing I do is the taste of next day's flavor. You know, just a little, you know, provocation about like why this is always cool. Because we're going to move forward every day, right? I really need some style. You know, I got to complain for a minute and then show you how to fix it. This is ugly as can possibly be. It looks like Craigslist.
It do.
Doesn't it? And you know, I'm like, I hate to be rude because I'm sure Craig is absolutely brilliant, really. But like, you know, it's so successful, that website, they just ignored any sense of style or any sense of branding. And frankly, a lot of old school websites might look like that. But you could bet if Google buys them, you know, which is not even a surprising concept, they'll redesign that entire thing. You can imagine what Craigslist would look like if Apple owned it. You know, so this looks like 1990. You know, this is what the web looked like 30 years ago. Or maybe that's an exaggeration. When did I start doing this? I forget. In the 1990s, it looked like this. Let's change it. So folks, take a deep breath. I'm about to show you something kind of advanced. And I want to say something going forward, and I better speed it up a little bit. You know, my class is accelerated, not just because it's the summer class. I mean, really, this is what I teach all year, really. It's like, I don't really like to waste too much time with, well, this is how beginners learn, you know, unless I believe in it. Sometimes the way advanced people do it is actually simpler if you learn it right away, right? So I want to say something about the smartest way to style a website. You're going to see code online that's going to show you how to take one headline and change its color. And the temptations are going to be very strong to do that. The only problem is, what if it is a 100-page website? How many times are you going to look for headlines and change their color? It makes no sense at all. So we're going to learn is a way to rig up styles for the whole website. Now, step one is to try it on the home page. And if it works, we're going to connect our styles to the other 4 pages. So hear this out. We're going to have one new page called the style sheet. The CSS style sheet. Super powerful stuff. The kind of style sheet we're using is called an external style sheet. And what it means is one page to rule them all, right? So we're going to link it to the 5 existing pages so that it turns them on. Now we're going to start with the home page, so let's join me. We have just enough time to try it out. Can everyone be sure you're going to your home page in Sublime Index? I'd also like you to go in the browser and make sure you click your own home link. So you're looking at the same page here, index.html, and you're looking at index.html here also. Step 1 is a new line in the head section. So I want you to go right after your title. But we haven't touched the head except for title. I want you to join me in this sort of lengthy line. Link href equals, so this one looks familiar. We're going to add something in a minute, but I want you to focus on this line. Notice where the spaces are and notice where the quotes are. When we've tested it, we're going to copy the finish line to the other 4 pages. Right now, we're testing on the home page. Now, I want to mention to you a couple things. I'm leaving that code in front so you could see it while I talk to you. Let me see. I take screenshots now and then just to know who's here later. Okay, the tag is link. I really wish it was called something else because it's not what we're used to when it comes to links, right? And it's not something you click. So it's a dumb name, but that is what it's called. What it's linking to is the style sheet we're about to make, right? So no one's going to see this link or be able to click it. It's going to magically connect it. It's like your internet connection, you know, you don't see it. So we're going to connect to a style sheet. Now we have to come up with a name. So let's call it this. Go to your line 4, and let's just call it animals.css. So that looks kind of new. So I want to say a couple quick words about that. All the pages end .html, but the style sheet has to end .css. Now I'm going to talk more about what that stands for, but let's feel it first. You know, who cares what it stands for until it has deeper meaning? So I want to actually try it out. You could call it anything .css. The smartest way to do it at this point is one style sheet for the whole website. So it's animals.css. You guys ready?
Yep.
All right, you look this line over hard?
Yes.
All right, save that page again. I got the gray dot, so I better save it. And ask for a new page. File menu, new file. This is gonna be easier than you expect, all right? It's gonna look weird, but it's gonna be easier. We're gonna style the body because most of your page lives in the body tag. Every page has got a body tag. So we can do all kinds of things to the body tag. So essentially, we're restyling body, telling it what to look like. Could you try this first? Well, it looks different than HTML, so you really want to be careful about how that looks. Let me make this bigger. You may have never used curly brackets before, right? They're next to the letter P. You hold down Shift, and it's next to the letter P. And they look like little mustaches to me. So I want to say a few things about this. The first element here is an HTML tag. We're telling an HTML tag from now on look like this. We have a curly bracket here, and this is called a closing curly bracket. Whatever we put in between is going to be more instructions for the body tag, right? The first thing we did was give it a margin. Let's save this and see what happens. Save it. Let me get this out of the way. Now we have to call it animals. Oops. Be real careful. Don't click save. This is a terrible name. So we have to write animals.css. It's got to be called that because we just linked on faith to a style sheet by this name. We're actually making it now. Make sure it's in the right folder. Animals.css. Let's click save. You get still new colors. And if you bothered to look, you'd see in the lower right corner, it says CSS, not HTML. It knows this is CSS. All you got to do now is go back to your browser, make sure you're on the home page. If you're already on the home page, you could click refresh. And this is what the 100 pixel margin looks like. It already looks much better than what we had. Now, I know we're not all going to agree on what makes a margin count or how it should look. Let's leave it for a minute because I want to add some color before we go a little deeper with all this. But I have to ask you something. Let me get that code back. If it isn't working, you have to check two places. The CSS and that one line that you put on the home page, right? So on the CSS, the most common error is leaving this out. It's called a semicolon, or writing this instead. Sorry. Right? This is wrong. This symbol means the end of a sentence in the language of CSS. So most lines are going to end this way. This sort of means equal. Make my margin equal 100 pixels. And it says, I'm done. Did yours work? So listen, before we add something stylish, I want to get the other pages to work. So look in my browser for a minute. Look, what? Land looks like that. Sea, sky, underground, no good. This looks so much better, right? So let's fix it. Let's go to the index page. Let me back up a bit. This was the magic line. So if your code didn't work, it's either on the style sheet you just made, the little style sheet, or it's in here. If this is correct, you could safely copy it to the exact same location for the other pages. Remember, just before we put them in order to make this easy. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to the next HTML page, land. It has to go in the head section. This is new, right? So you're going to make yourself some room in the head section and paste it in there. This tab doesn't matter, but you could see how easy it makes it to read. You know, when we get more advanced, we're going to put more hidden things in the head section that run the show. Engines, secret engines. This is the secret connection to your style. Save it. Go to the next page, which is C. In each case, it lives in the head section, just like the title does. Save as you go. If you don't save, that one page won't have style. What's the next one? Sky? I'm going to sky. So, you know, a lot of people consider this advanced, but frankly, it's not that hard, and it's definitely the smartest way to do it. So I always teach it early. All right, let's go to the next one. So you want to make sure we got 5 pages, right? It's a little bigger than I meant to do today, but that's good. Let's save it. I'm making sure everything has an X on it, and it looks like I made a change on my style sheet. It's got a gray dot. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to save it. All right, this line is so important and so easy to forget. Any page sharing the styles has got to have that line. The only part that's ever going to change on your next website is this. You're going to give your style sheets different names. The MCC style.css. All right, let's go to the browser and click the other links. So they all should share the margin. I want to tell you something that's beautiful about this moment. This is for me when the party actually starts, because I know my links work, every page has some kind of content, and I know my style sheet works. So since everything is working, I could take a break and be creative and make creative choices because everything's running. Let's make a little choice about color. It may be the last thing for today, right? Let's see, right? Join me by going back to your code. And now it's all about the style sheet. I think I'm going to drag mine all the way to the right just to stay really neat. I got all my HTML in an order here, but right now I'm focusing on the style sheet. Style sheets can get very long, right? I want to do a couple quick things with you though. I want to do more to the body. The body also controls the color of your page. So go one line under the margin and try this with me. You'll notice when you start to type, Sublime takes guesses about what it thinks you want. And if you do want one of them, background color, for example, you could click it. Or you could type it yourself. That's what it looks like. We're going to learn a lot about using color for the web. Right now, let's try something really simple. You could put in any obvious color name. So in other words, don't be trying like chartreuse necessarily or bluish periwinkle. That's definitely not happening. Right? But the obvious ones, you know, if you speak color, I mean primary and secondary colors. For those of you who know what that is. Also, you could just take a shot. There are some weird ones like salmon. I don't know why salmon is a color when there's so few. We're going to learn where the cool colors are. Let me just see if I'm right. That's what salmon, it does look like salmon, actually. So anyway, you pick your own color right now, right? Well, I'm going to stick with this weird color. No, I'm not. I'm going with orange. There we go. So here's the cool part. Click your other pages. Slick, right? Now this looks much better than it looked yesterday, and we just got started, right? So what you just did was 2 of the first style changes I always make. right? Margins are required. Anything without a margin looks like a very amateurish. It doesn't have an adult kind of feel to it. This bit of space here, right? And we're going to want to do more with color. So I want to do a few things with you, but I do want to answer an earlier question from today. I forgot which, you know, Andy, I think it was you. Were you asking me about the sizes of the headlines? Your mic is off, you know. Andy? Well, anyway, let's do it together. Let's take a look at the style sheet. All right. There's more we could do with the body, so we're all going to visit it again. But I do want to show you how the whole system works. Let's say we wanted to work just on our H1s. We have a lot of them, right? Every page has an H1, so that seems worth it. Let's go ahead and go to the next line. So here's the way it works. Any tag you want to style, you add like that. So the only tags you learned so far that we could do this to is the body tag, which has big results. Your headlines like H1, your paragraphs, which is the P tag, right? But we're gonna learn more elements. We're gonna do images soon, you know, photos. And we have cool stuff we could do with them. Let's try a couple things with the body. I got this question earlier about size. So what we're looking for is font size. Class is almost over. I can see people getting tired. That's fine. It's I'm like, no, let's go. Let's do the whole semester today. All right. All right. I want to show you something. Regular text, like your paragraphs, they're 16 pixels, just to give you an idea, right? What that looks like. So this is 16 pixels, these paragraphs here. So I'm going to make this headline really big, right? I'm going to go all the way up to 64 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. Now, I know some of you have never worked with pixels before, right? Don't you worry about it. You got to do it on faith with me this time, right? So it follows the same pattern. I'm asking about an element, a margin, a background color, a font size, colon. On the right side is what we call the value that I'm asking for, right? The size, the color, and then I end it with a semicolon. Can you save? Doesn't matter what page you're on. So you go back to the browser and refresh it. Wow, that is big. It looks good. It only looks good on the big browser though. Right? You know, actually that's not so bad. You see, in the real world, I would have to write some extra code that says, could you change it if the browser is too small? You know, like 64 is too big if the browser is like this. So there's code I could write that says, make this change. We're definitely not ready for that. So I think I'm going to back up a little bit and just change this to 48, which I think would look good too. Save that. Come here and refresh it. So anyone who was curious about the H tags, it is a little different than what I presented earlier. I want to mention a quick thing. I want to choose the right amount for each day. You know, I never want to do too little, but I also don't want to do too much. But the headline had a size. We all saw it, right? What it looked like originally. So that means somewhere on the internet I could look up, how big is H1? You know, all right, I'm going to do that. Give me a second here. Pretty soon
like
I'm going to
16.
No, that's paragraphs. Right?
In the paragraph.
Paragraphs.
The size,
I'm not talking about H1. You're right. But so I want to show you something. I'm going to write this thing here, W3S, which is going to take me to a place called W3 Schools. It's the #1 place to look stuff up for web design. So I'm just typing W3S. After that, I'm writing H1 size, and I'm going to hit return. So I'm in a new tab in the browser. Let me just move this stuff over. Here's W3 Schools, H1 to H6. I'm going to click this thing. And it's, you know, we talked about this already, that there's 6 of them. So I'm going to skip down here. I want to see if it's got more information for me. All right. So we're not ready to learn about M, but I will tell you a little bit. M is the default size of the page. So that is 16 pixels. So basically what this is saying is, by default, a headline of H1 is twice the size of your default text, which is 16 pixels. So basically it's saying 32. So I want to show you something about that. This means twice the default size. The default is always 16 until you learn how to change it. So some people like this kind of measurement. Let's not get stuck on this. This does mean 32 pixels. So I'm going to be the guinea pig. I want to show you something. That basically means if I had made this 32 pixels, that's what it looked like when we got started. So to even bother doing this, I got to be bigger than 32 pixels. This is what HTML does without its friend CSS. So in other words, it's going to look the same even if I took this out. That's the default. So a lot of what CSS is changing defaults. So we got 32 is too small. About responsive.
Show me
About responsive design. Yes. About responsive design. Boy, is that trippy. About responsive design. With my voice is talking about design. Wow, that's a hungry person who watches live and the video at the exact same time. That's a big appetite, man. All right, I'm going to show you one last thing just because it's fun, and let's wrap it up for today, right? You know, so what we've got here is two really useful tags that are on every style sheet I've ever made, right? I want to show you what's weird if you gave a headline a background color. So it's cool looking, but it's also a little weird, right? So I want to show you something about it. We'll come back to the subject later. Can you join me though? So just like we gave the body, other things can have their own backgrounds, right? So I'm being lazy and I'm not typing it for myself. Oh, here we go. All right, I'll type it myself. Oh, there we go. Background color. I want to give it a different background color, right? So I'm going to make it red for the moment. Don't forget that semicolon. So you just said every H1 on the website should have its own color background. What could that possibly look like? Let's check it out. Save it. Go back to the browser and refresh it. So it's interesting. Every single page now is looking quite a bit fancier than it looked before, right? This is really just day 2. Here's the code. I want to say something, and I'm going to throw in a couple quick things. Don't feel like you have to memorize them, right? One thing that's odd about headlines is they actually occupy the whole width from margin to margin. So it's going across the whole website. It is responsive in this sense. Watch what happens when it's smaller or bigger, right? Even on this size, it'll do that, right? So if you don't want it to go straight across, if you don't really like that, you have to type in a width. So I'm going to quickly do it just to prove it, right? I don't know how wide to be, but I'm going to try out 700 pixels and see what that looks like. So I'm going to write width just in the H1. I liked it the way that it was, but I just want to make a point. 700 pixels, and I'm going to save it. Let me just check that it works, right? And then I'll bring my code right back, right? So as long as they all fit there, it's going to look pretty good. Actually, that was not a bad choice. I kind of like it. So I want to say something as I wrap it up. What starts to happen is this. At first, you're learning HTML, and it's called a markup language, as I keep mentioning. And what it means is telling things what they are. You're a headline. You're a small headline. You're a paragraph. Later on, you're an image, right? So it just lays stuff out. And frankly, 10 years ago, roughly, 15 maybe, we didn't have CSS yet. So the web was ugly. And not to keep picking on Craigslist, but everything looked like Craigslist. You know, they just never really bothered to upgrade. When CSS came out, oh, now I'm remembering, I would say 20 years ago, 19 years ago, people are like, hey, this is powerful stuff. Now, if you learn it on the internet, if you like moving ahead of my class, I don't mind, but make sure you use external style sheets. You're going to learn ways to go into one little tag, type a little code, and it just wastes time. You could see what we did. You could add 20 pages to this website now, and guess what? They're all styled already. As long as they have this one line, you know, this link line up in the head section, They're all going to be reading your style sheet. So what's going to happen is, you know, there's things we want to do, right? Like we want to change the color of the text. We just don't have time today. Hey, are there any questions about this? Andrew, your box is lit up. Do you have a question for me?
No, I was just sparing you from my rewinding your past presentation.
Oh, was that you? But listen, you did see the headline, right? Because earlier today you asked me about sizes for headlines. So
I was looking at that, and I was working on another computer and looking for the mute button, and I couldn't find it. Then I realized that going back and forth, trying to keep up with you.
So listen, I want to wrap it up, and I want to show everybody something back on my handout. So give me a minute. Let me just fold this thing up. All right, so this is today's handout. Again, as I said to everyone earlier today, this is the only the third meeting, right? Be sure you're never without this address, iraworks.com/bmcc, which, by the way, does work on your phone. You know, so there's that. Here's class 3. Later on, I'm going to add another link to the class 3 video, but I got to tell you, these are all going to the playlist. Anyway, so they're all going to be on one page. But right now, let me come here, and I just want to point out something. So what we just did today was we reviewed everything from yesterday, and then we added this little bit on number 7. But number 7 here doesn't give you too much information, right? Just reminding you that this one link has to be in the head section, usually right after the closing title. So you just did this, right? Now, what I like best about these handouts, once you start to understand stuff, is this. Now, this is hard to copy and paste from, because if you do, these numbers are going to come and they're going to break your code. Now, I got to tell you, it's a little devious on my part, but I do that purposely because I'd rather you look and type and learn that way, right? But it's all here for you to look at, right? So this is what links look like, right? And then if you go further on, here's the style that we did. We actually did a little bit more than this today, right? We added a little width inside the headline and a background color in the headline. I want to just say something to you about, for people who, you know, do like to read. So I mentioned today for the first time W3 schools, and they're brilliant. You know, just everybody studies W3 schools, everybody who web designs, really. If you do read this link, though, keep in mind, they're going to show you 3 or 4 different ways to style. I went right away to the most powerful one. Right? If there's time, I'll back up to the lighter ones so people at least recognize them. But you should feel good. You learn the most useful one first, which is not usually the way it's not. None of you found it too hard, you know, as far as I can tell. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up. And I do want to say just a word or two before people start taking off. If you were here for the first day today, you might feel a little disoriented. Maybe it was a lot for one day, or maybe you rock. I don't know. You're here for the first day and you just, or you watch the other videos already, which is perfect. But I do want to say, if you do want to back up a little bit, I don't think I'd watch the first video. I don't think it's big introduction, long-winded the way it is first days. I gave you the brief yesterday of everything that needed to be reviewed. So anyone who missed yesterday's lesson, watch yesterday's video. Anyone who wants to watch this one, it takes about an hour for me to get them online. It's weird. Zoom's recording them. And you are seeing the record thing? I don't know why I don't get that. I am recording, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Really, it's a little awkward on my end. In any case, then I have to upload it to YouTube, and then YouTube has to go at it, and it's incredibly slow as it rewrites stuff. But if Zoom had playlists, they'd be up instantly right after class. But Zoom doesn't have that feature. So it's best for us to have all the videos in one place. Anybody have any questions for me before I take off?
Yeah, I have
Yes.
a question, teacher.
Yes.
For example, I know that the other pages, like for example, index, land, and all of them are public. For example, you know, like I can access, or anybody who has this folder can access. But I would like to know, for example, the
CSS?
CSS. Yeah, can anybody access the?
That's a good question. I want to show you. Mean look at other people's code online, right?
Yeah.
Check this out. But folks, I just have to say something quickly. The class does officially end at 12. You shouldn't feel bad if you want to go. you know, the work's intense, feel free. I do have office hours, so I'll often hang around right after class. My official hours start at 12, Monday to Thursday. If you need me in between, send me thoughtful emails. So before I answer Emmanuel's excellent question, I do want to encourage everyone in this room to not use my BMCC email, because I get a flood from there. Sometimes I miss emails and someone's like, hey, I didn't hear from you for a week. It's because of the 100 other emails, right? But your class has a devoted email account. So you'll see it's uncrowded, right? I just heard from one person today, right? So that link, that address is on every handout right up here, irmmp100@gmail.com. So look, I won't ignore you if you use the BMCC email, right? It's just better for me and probably better for you if we use this private email account so nothing gets diluted by a big old mess, right? So again, anyone who wants to go. Anyone who wants to hang around here, the answer to Emmanuel's question or maybe ask something else.
Bye.
Yes, Sanchia. See ya.
It was fun today. I enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. It is excellent. This we call it the after party. When this other teacher called it that, it made me laugh. So anyway,
See you Monday.
everyone's invited, but no one has to stay. I just want to be sure that I didn't lose the guy who just asked the question. Did he disappear?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, you're there. Sorry, Emmanuel.
Yeah.
I'm easily confused. You'd never know it. All right, watch this. So if I went to a website online, it's going to look just like this. Check it out. You know what? Let me actually do that. CNN has got scary code. Not only do they have scary news, they have scary code. But we're going to take a peek anyway, right? So there's the very elaborate, very, very complex looking cover of the CNN website. Now, I go to the view menu. In most browsers, you go to developer to see the source, view source. That really means view the HTML, right? Now watch what happens, because he wants to see the style sheet. So I'm going to do view source. Now, this is crazy looking page. I probably chose the wrong page for this. You know what? This is just scary. Give me a minute. I think I want to do a different page.
You know, I wrote a blog years ago, and I decided to look at the page source last night just to get an understanding. It was about 500 lines. I don't know how I accomplished that. Thank God for templates.
I realized that. You know, well, the thing is, you know, if you ever get the chance, you want to check out ironworks.com, not /BMCC, ironworks.com. It's the way I like to design. I like clean, uncomplicated looks. Also, I like code that I don't mind changing over long periods of time. So you wind up developing a style around what you believe if you hand code. You know, of course, if you use WordPress or Wix or Squarespace, you don't have that same freedom. You do have the beauty of templates, but you don't have the same freedom. So let's take a look. I want to answer his question. So Emmanuel, check it out. So I'm going to do the same thing. My code's a little intense, but it's not like CNN's. I go to view source. What I want to show you is this, though. The line you learned today is this one. Now, you notice I have 4 style sheets, which you really need to avoid because these are for special purposes. Some style sheets are me just borrowing stuff that's a web-based feature, right? They're not actually styles the way it usually sounds. This third one now, though, this is my style sheet. So all my colors, all my fonts, this third one. Look what happens if I click it. So I did developer view source. To get here, I'm looking at the HTML, but it looks like a link. I click it, there's my CSS, right? So some of this stuff is crazy, but I want to show you the stuff you're going to recognize already. Let's, here, there's my H1. My headlines are white. I didn't use pixels, I used a different measurement, right? So this typically means 24 pixels. We didn't learn padding yet, right? And you know, I even styled H2s and H3s. I went crazy with headlines. You know, since I could change the sizes, I get to use them for whatever I want to use them for ultimately, really. But there's all the code. So I've got some crazy code because I'm using JavaScript and other things here. But did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. But for example, any like for example, me, I try to look at your code. Can I edit that code or I just can see it?
No, but what you can do is copy it and put it in your own code and see how it behaves. So what people do is, see, like, let's say you went back to the HTML, right? And you copied this, you pasted it into Sublime, right? And you saved it as something, you know, whatever, .html. Then you could open your own copy in Chrome and edit your own code in Sublime because you made your own copy. So you literally came here and you did Command A right here. Command C. Check this weird maneuver out. I just did edit copy, by the way. I could go to Sublime, make a page, watch this, paste it, right? Save it with my own name, and then forget about the website. But I want to tell you what the limit of that is. There's a couple limits. One, a lot of the code's going to be affected by the photos that are there. So it's all going to kind of fall apart if the photos aren't there holding things, you know, because it's an ecosystem of pictures and words. So that's going to be a little bit of a headache because you can't copy the photos easily. There are ways, but it's slow. So that's one problem. The other problem is if they're accessing anything, special features from the internet, like one thing I'd love to cover with you guys, I probably won't get to, so I'm gonna have to point you to it, is how you use online font libraries. Google Fonts is made for web designers. So I get to use cooler fonts if I know how to access it, but it's live. I don't download fonts. I connect to Google Fonts. So if, you know, in other words, there's other details that are going to affect the way it looks. But this, by the way, though, what you asked is a really smart question. And everyone excellent at code has done exactly what you asked. I mean, Steve Jobs from Apple and also Bill Gates from Windows have openly admitted that they were constantly copying and studying code. Openly admitted it. They became the masters, but they did it largely by studying everybody else's code. So it's a great question.
I have another question too, sorry.
Ask. Go ahead.
For example, I know that when you go to any page, for example, CNN, any page, you will see, like, for example, secure, the HTTPS. Why yours is not secure? Why yours is HTTP?
That's a good question. So HTTPS, as he mentioned, the S is for secure. So most websites say http://www.thename.com, let's say, HTTP. So that's hypertext transfer protocol, right? Hypertext, links, transfer, going up and down, protocol. Protocol just means behavior, let's say. So secure behavior is usually limited for things that need security. For example, anything with e-commerce better be secure. Anything with your private data better be secure. But what's going to happen at Ironworks? I'm a designer. You can't buy anything. You can't steal anything. You can't do anything. So it's not secure. I myself have never needed to work on a secure website in the kind of career that I've maintained. So
is that an option that you put, or is that an option that, for example, the server gave it to you?
That's also a really good question. When you start a business and go get that web address to begin with, and choose the company who's going to keep you online, the host, right? Because everyone in here who's going to want to keep a website on the web is going to have to find a host at that point. You would tell the host, I need a secure website. I need a secure one. I'm running a store, for example.
Got it.
And then, I know so little about that, to be honest. The question for me becomes like, what does that cost? Is it expensive? Is it the same $7 a month that I got used to? Or are we talking more? What's that?
No, one of my questions once upon a time was, can I do it myself? But no, you can't.
Well, you can, but I just don't know why you would. I have friends who like to build computers, right? And they also like web design. So they might want to build a computer, web design, then make the computer a server. So when you hear the word server, they're just devoted computers, so they may be very ramped up power-wise, but they're devoted to serving stuff. Like your computer doesn't serve stuff. You know what I mean? It's not serving anything to the outer world. So when you go to a host company, for example, like GoDaddy.com, GoDaddy, they probably have 100 computers there, and they probably have the most RAM, the hugest hard drives, not as big as Google's, but huge, and they're programmed to serve up the websites. So they don't serve email, they serve websites. So it's a different kind of server. So you can do that from home. The only thing, Andy, let's say you were that type. And some of you guys will probably know how to do that, depending on your major. The question then becomes, why would you? Like, how many computers do you need if your website gets popular? Or is it in-house? Is it a website just for one building? Maybe there's a reason then to have a server in the building. I don't think so, but maybe. I'm just a designer. You know what I mean? So these questions are smart and they are related. Yeah, so Andy, yeah, people do build their own servers. I just don't find it particularly motivating.
No, it's not.
To do that.
So a question about your text here. So hypothetically, I can literally copy and paste everything someone else has done, go back and personalize it, and literally mirror a website similar to what I like?
To some degree. Let's do an experiment. You all saw me copy that code from the internet just now. Let's forget that I happen to be the owner, right? I did copy it right out of the browser, and it's right behind us right now, right? I'm still screen sharing, aren't I?
Yes.
Yes. So what would happen if I
You're still recording. You're still recording, by the way.
That's fine. Some people might be interested. I announced that it was office hours, so if they don't want to watch, they don't have to. So this page here that I just copied, right? Let's just be short. So this is that big HTML page. It's currently untitled. I'm going to save it. And I know it's weird, but I'm going to put it in today's folder. I'm just going to call it testing and throw it out later. Testing.html. So I'm saving it into today's folder. This is a weird maneuver. Now, the first problem is I didn't copy the style sheet. So let's get a look and see what's going to happen. So here is testing. I'm dragging it in here. So this is what my website would look like without the style sheet. Ugly as sin. So let's go the next step, right? Now this is daring, and I probably shouldn't be doing this. I was asked to open the style sheet, right? And it happens to have this name. I'm going to need that in a minute, but not yet. Let me copy this. Command C. I'm going to Sublime, and I'm opening a new tab. File menu new. I'm pasting the style sheet. Now, for this to work, I have to save it with the right name. So I just want to remind you, in this case, this is the style sheet here. Now, I see it's looking in a CSS folder. I'm just going to simplify this a little bit. So I just changed the HTML just a bit. But this is going to be the name of the style sheet here. So this is the style sheet I stole. I'm saving it, and I'm giving it the name that the HTML is going to look for. So this one called testing is going to look for this with this long, strange name. And it's got to be in the same folder, so I'm using today's folder. Let's go back and see what happened. Here's the styleless version. Here it is with style. We're getting closer, right? Much closer. But it doesn't look quite right. So this is what I'm trying to say. I have to go step by step after I borrowed the code to see why isn't it exactly right? What else is missing? And you haven't really learned it all yet. There's other things involved. My links are very elaborate the way that they're made, and they do use some JavaScript, so I'd have to look at that and see am I missing something. But you could see large chunks are there. So here's the answer. I would say it's a 75% satisfying answer. Can you copy code and make it your own? Yes. Is it easy? Not too. You copy the HTML, you find the CSS, you copy the CSS, you make sure that they're linked, right? That's some stuff you learned today, and that gets us this far. This is probably as far as you want to go, because you probably don't want to copy whole pages very often, but people do. So folks, listen, I want to tell you what I'm going to suggest, though. I want to just tell you from experience teaching people this. I love it when people are interested in moving forward, but I have noticed a pattern recently. The people who move forward too much get disheartened, because what happens is they create a mess, and then they don't want to get out of it, and then they're like, I don't like this anymore. So I'm going to ask you to pace yourself, unless you know you have unusual emotional stamina, because you're going to try some things that you may not be ready for. And I'm not putting that down as long as you don't get discouraged. You know, if you're willing to get back up, we're going to go in a very reasonable offer. Look, I got to tell you something. You just learned what takes most classes like 10 days. And I don't mean to sound cocky, because maybe I'm wrong. Those teachers are including other valuable stuff for sure. But when it comes to down in the trenches web design, you just learned like 10 days worth, because I didn't go through the small, well, we used to do this, you know, and then we upgraded to this. Now we're like, we do this. This is how we do it now, you know. And I'm also encouraging you to, yes, sir.
I tried to self-learn this years ago, and I completely gave up. The process of elimination took days.
So how's it
going?
going?
To get the masthead from the bottom corner to the masthead was so impossible, and now I'm getting educated, and now I'm seeing I can do this.
So, you know, Andy, this is what I really believe in. And it's just a few of us.
Laughing, Marissa.
What's that?
Marissa's laughing at me.
Is it? Well, she's probably been through it. Is that what that is? Does that sound familiar? That's what it is. Because mostly everybody who dabbles in this had that experience. Man, my first website that I actually put live, I made such a train wreck out of it. It was just an unbelievable disaster. And I was presumptuous enough to actually do this for money. I just convinced somebody that I could do it. And then I just sort of ruined everything. And luckily I had a friend who was better, who was able to go in and say, oh my God, take this out, take this out. And it was mostly just layers of complexity that I wasn't ready for. So I want to say something about that. You know, I started teaching when I was younger than any of you. I don't think any of you are 18. Maybe you are. I started teaching about 18, right? Which was a nervy thing, different stuff. But over the years, since it's just been so long, I realized what a good diet is. If I underdo it, I'm going to lose you, you know, because it's just not interesting. You can start passing out and wondering why you're in school. If I overdo it, I'm going to freak people out. Watch the room empty out if I overdo it. I'll have half students within weeks. We'll be down to a third, right? So it's something about learning that we all need to learn. It's like going to the gym. You know, on your first day, you did the most weight possible. You're not going to be able to move for a week. You know, you're going to need a different pace to actually get any success. So about that, remember, this is Intro to Multimedia, and it isn't Intro to Web Design. So what's going to happen is some of you are not going to want to leave when we move on to the next subject. So what I'm going to do for those people is show you where you could learn more. So I have a secret mission. I want to teach you everything you would need so that you would have enough to move ahead safely. That's the idea. So I'm sticking with like really good, juicy, concrete things. And then I'm going to show you where my favorite resources are and what I suggest you do next. Okay. You know, so listen, I got to tell you something. You know, I teach at FIT, and half the year I teach web design there, and it's all web design. So it's 15 weeks like you guys, well, typically for us. It's all web design, but the school's got a crazy attitude about how teaching should work, and it's always about overdoing it. So, and I don't have a choice. That's just the way they look at it. The problem is, by the end of the semester, I could tell from their faces that at least half the class is never going to do it again. You know what I mean? Because I didn't teach it at a pace that was reasonable, so they didn't learn deeply enough to feel confident in the water.
And it's so intimidating. Like, thank you for intentionally lessening the intimidation factor.
You know, because it doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't. And no art form has to be like that. You know, when people want to play music, so I'm a musician. I'm not saying I'm very good, but I got a lot of soul. You know, I'm not good at reading music or anything, but I'm good at making stuff up. So if someone says, oh, I can't make music, I've heard other people say I can't draw a straight line. And I always say to them, oh, that's great, because artists don't draw a lot of straight lines. So like if it was music, I'd sit you down at a piano and I'd say, let's start with these 5 notes. And I'd prove to you you can make music with those 5 notes. I'd prove it right there. I'd even jam with you. you know, and then you would see right away, it's like, holy cow, you're kidding me. It was that all along? I'd be like, yeah. But if you want to get to classical music, which I can't play, you know, you're going to have to go through the steps. So when it comes to web design, here's what I recommend. Learn how to make something as beautiful as you can with as little as possible. That's going to benefit you your whole career. Make it as beautiful as possible with as little as possible. Then when you move forward and you need a lot, you know, you're working for CNN, you know, that's off the hook, crazy. Or you're working for Amazon, you know, then you'll realize, okay, at least I'm not writing extra complex code. I'm only doing it where it is naturally complex, you know, where it needs to be. You don't learn 6 swimming strokes before you can master 1. Then you learn another one. And then, you know, you start to master things, you move at a different rate. Because I got to tell you, to learn deepest, take the fundamentals and make them yours. You know what I mean? You just want to like own them. Because your generation is, you know, in a hurry because life seems so dangerous. So everybody's like, I got to make money now. I got to get my career now. I got to learn everything today. But it isn't really true. Every generation's felt threatened. And you still have to go at the natural pace of learning. So I really do believe in what we're going to do over the next few. You know, I got to tell you something. We got a lot done already. The 2 big things is more style and photos. You know, it's, you know, really most of what we're going to do. More styling, including fonts and stuff, and photos, and that's going to move us into Photoshop. But then I know somebody's going to be like, well, gee, I want to work in a grid, you know, like CNN does. You know, where, hang on a second here. See, like my website doesn't, you know, avoids the grid. I got some grids, right? Like my links look fancy, you know, but by and large, you know, websites like this, I don't even want to work on this. Geez, there's 3 columns, you know, and even the columns change. Watch this. And now, now it's 2 columns, and now it's 1, you know, and yet it's like all this stuff all over the place. That's exhausting. You know, it's like really, it's not made by one person. That's for sure. You know, it's definitely something built by, you know, a crew and very systematic because they repeat it every day. You know, what's interesting about their websites though, is it gets easier on the inside. Like once you go inside of a link, why do I have to choose that one? All right, anyway. It does look a little bit simpler, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I know it's got this stuff on the right, but other than that, you're going to learn how to do this, by the way. You know, mixed pictures inside the text coming up pretty soon. But it's closer. So frankly, I like this look more than their homepage anyway. So, you know, one of the arguments is how complex is good. You know, people love the people love the iPhone, but before it, I don't know if any of you had the old, I can't believe how quickly time moves ahead. The music device from Apple, we all used to have the iPods.
Yeah.
You know, all the different iPods. They're crazy simple, those things. And they had the least buttons of any music device ever in history. My first iPod had 1 dial with a button in the middle. And I looked at that and I thought, that is crazy. It's the most Zen looking tech object I'd ever seen. By the way, you know, Jobs was a Buddhist and studied with Zen teachers, so it's no surprise that his design looked like that, you know. But simple, simple, simple. So I really think the highest art really knows when not to be complicated and avoids it. So anyway, folks, let's wrap it up. That went great. Is today Thursday? Yes, it is. So, you know, if you're feeling it, you could build yourself small websites with what you learned. We got a good start. And then on Monday,
I paid $500.
What's that?
I recently paid $500 for someone to build a 3-page website, and I'm looking at it like, what the hell did I just pay for?
Well, Andy,
because I can now do it.
But does it look good? I mean, do you like it?
Yeah, but I'm questioning, you know, how much work really went into it. Looking at what I can do now.
It's a fair question, but you know, I do want to say I've charged different prices depending on the economy and how complicated my client's needs are. And I want to be honest, I'm very shy about e-commerce. I find it a pain in the ass. Sorry. So I usually don't take e-commerce websites. I take what's called presentation websites. So I worked on a bunch of schools, for example, websites, because they don't sell anything on the website. I just make them look good and make the information really behave. But I'll never charge, even on the worst day, less than $250 a page. And so you just got a deal. Now the thing is, if you don't like the way it looks, then it doesn't matter. One thing that is kind of interesting, though, if it is simple, what you could consider doing is taking it after my class, and you become your own web. True, the words escape me. You'll maintain it. You'll make the changes. And then it's $500 is a great deal for that. So I wouldn't feel too bad about it. Again, it really depends on how, as simple as the code is, how good is it, how useful is it to you. It's really kind of a bargain. You wouldn't have gotten a better price anywhere. But, it is true also, though. Like, by the end of this, you might say, I really didn't need it. I did learn enough to do this myself. We'll find out. It's hard to say. It is hard to say. What I have done for some people is I've built websites for them, and they knew enough code that they were like, look, I do change my articles. So I'm like, okay, you know what an H1 looks like. You know what a P tag looks like. So I would tell that person, you have the code now. I give it to them. You got the photos, you got everything. But it would be wise to only change headlines and paragraphs unless you're really good at it. And then they'll actually be able to make their pages update every day. They just change the basic stuff. And then they go a little step further. They learn how to change photos, maybe, and then they can maintain their own website. But, I want to close on one last thought. I think I mentioned to you yesterday, my daughter wants to open this magazine online. It's a literary magazine, so there'd probably be a lot of writers, I guess, or definitely hardcore readers hanging out there. And, she's smart. We could have designed it together. I could have shown her how to update it. But frankly, for her to be able to concentrate on her business, I want her to have a fast way to say, this article just came in, I want to post it now. What's the fastest way? That's where the CMS starts to shine. Content management systems, Wix, Squarespace, WordPress, because they have ways where people who don't want to mess with the code could just, okay, add a page here, click, a little window, headline, type in the headline, click send, so it's like a control panel, but it doesn't have anything near the control we have, but it's for people who just, basically, when we say content, most of the time we mean words and photos. So they just rig it up so someone could change the words and photos quickly. And that's called content management system. So I don't do a lot of that. Obviously it's not natural to me because I like doing things from scratch, and that's the kind of clients that I've gotten. But I wish I knew more about it. I spent like a month or two with WordPress. It was pretty fascinating and also frustrating, but I could see how people master it, how appealing that is. Then they leave. No one has to maintain the website. Just the client learns how to change stuff through their system. Wix also, like I said, Squarespace. But, strangely, even though my daughter's, I'm the dad, we were looking together, we couldn't find a template that was perfect. And, so it's a 14-day trial, by the way, at, what's she using? Squarespace she's using. So she had 14 days to play with it to figure out whether it's really a good idea. But we're still not 100% sure. So, I could design it for her. It would be fun. I would just do 2 designs. The homepage would be a little more complicated. Cover of the magazine, click here, click there. But then once you click in, you go right to an article. Really simple, sleek, but sharp design, but a little on the minimalist side. And so she wouldn't have too much to juggle. But these questions are all on the table right now. So let's back up a little bit. I think I am risking going a little too far. Emmanuel, your questions are very practical. You think a little bit like a businessman at the same time as thinking like a artist, code person. And same thing, Andy. And everybody in here is going to have different ways of looking at it. I'm going to close with one last thought. Your teacher here is mostly, personally, outside of class, interested in making art for the soul. And it's not necessarily commerce-oriented or even digital. But I like being creative to pay my bills. So I've learned lots of stuff that's creative that helps me pay bills. We're all going to see the web differently. I know I'm going to have some students that are going to make a website that's just for their own creative expression. And I don't know what they're going to put up. You know, videos of their performances or their poetry or music or things they like, their own private Pinterest. You know, I don't know how they're going to treat it. And that's valid. That's very valid. Other people are going to be like, well, I have a business model. Like some of you sound like you might have. And that's why I'm learning. Everyone has got a different motive. I think they're all great. If your goal is to be a web designer, you know, that's really what you want to do. You're on an interesting path. It really is an interesting path. I suggest do what we're going to do together. Wait for me. I'll point you in a couple things that are good to learn best. By the way, depending on your major, you might be studying with any number of really talented teachers after this. Chris Stein, who is my boss, by the way, he's just a great guy who loves this stuff. He would love to have you in his class. And I know his interests are more complicated. So you would definitely go the next step up. Anyway, I have time for one more question if there is any. Otherwise, I'll see you Monday.
I have one.
Shoot.
Sometimes when I go to a website, they can identify that I have an ad blocker. Is that something that comes from the server, or is that built into the web page?
I've never done that. How would they do that? I got to think about it. There's definitely code on that web page.
It's the server that you build. The server blocks the cookies and it blocks the ad blockers. So the ad blockers, basically the server makes money from it.
Okay.
So when you use the ad blocker, they don't run the ad, so the server doesn't make the money.
Interesting.
Like I built PCs. So when I put a server in the PC, right, the owner says like, okay, I need these kind of servers, these 2-3 servers in like one PC, so I have to have more RAM and all that. So the server needs to make money out of the owner doesn't give you that much money, so you have to put the server and certain ads that you can make like a couple of dollars from out of it. It's like YouTube stuff.
Hey, can I ask you a quick question? Before I ask you a question, I want to just qualify something. Is Farouk your first name?
No, that's my last name.
Oh, because I had it backwards. So you know, you had Blackboard problems. So I wrote to the department and I think I used the wrong name. So I'm just taking a note. But Farouk, did you say you build servers?
I build PCs.
I do too, but I don't deal with servers.
So, no, I deal with servers because like it's demand. They have high demand.
That's cool.
Because like, yeah, it's like one of my professor for CIS, like he gave me a job for IMB. So they want me to build one server with him. So I did it, work with him.
Wow.
It was so fun. Like you can't even imagine how fun it is to build a server.
I can imagine. Yes, I can.
And you can literally, it's like so like, you know, you can literally check everything, what they're doing. What are you doing? Because like, you know, when you sell them the server, that you have to give them like certain type of like agreement that you're not gonna see it or anything. But like my teacher and I, like we control the server and all that. So it's so fun. Like you could see thousands of people going inside in one at a time, checking everything and all that.
So listen, Omar, I want to say to you and John also, you know, so I'm not a hardware guy, you know. So like I'm not the kind of person who's ever opened my computers to do more than take out a battery.
It's the loveliest thing you ever done. Like
it's so interesting though. It's like body and soul, right? Like I always work with the programming and somebody's got to make the body.
The computer apart.
So I got to say, we have a great opportunity here to ask interesting questions from each other. And when you guys, when you hear a question that I can't answer that you have either of you or others that are here, feel free to chime in and help with that stuff because I like us sharing, especially in a multimedia class. It's rather appropriate for us to be talking about this kind of range. Folks, I do have to go right now. So I do want to say, though, thank you all for sticking around, even for the after party. And have a good weekend. And if you work on the code, keep your head. Because if everything doesn't work each time, that's part of the price you pay. You know, part of it is punching it out and trying to get it to work and then moving forward. So Monday I got good stuff.
All right.
All right. See you guys. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See everybody. It's been fun.